Snake Force, it's Russ with Brothers of the Serpent podcast, and first of all, I want to apologize that it has been so long since we posted anything. We were in Egypt and then Turkey for 7 weeks. It was a long trip, but we're back now. And before we posted any new episodes, I wanted to post this episode, which is something we recorded while we were in Egypt. We recorded this in a hotel room right next to the Giza Plateau with Ben, right before we left for Turkey, and we discussed the Khafre scans. We spent about an hour talking about the Khafre scans and our thoughts on them. And a lot more information about that has come out since we recorded this, but I think it's a good conversation. I think you guys will enjoy it. Obviously, we'll probably be talking about this more in the future as more information comes out. We also discussed other things we did on the trip, including climbing the well shaft again. Got interesting information on the well shaft in the Great Pyramid, and hopefully a produced video will be coming out about that soon. And then we also discussed some new findings by Max, the plasma physicist. You guys might remember him from, Ben and I went down and visited him, and he did some scanning electron microscopy on some vase fragments we had. Well, Max has discovered some new and interesting things on the vases, so we discussed that a little bit as well. We read from Max's website on his findings. Max has since we recorded this, Max has gone on the Limitless podcast with Matt Bell and discussed these findings, so maybe you guys have already heard about it, but we read about them and discuss them in this show. And the other thing I wanted to tell you about this episode, it was a roadsode. We recorded it in a hotel room. The audio isn't that great. The video's okay, but yeah, there's some audio issues, but it was recorded with the equipment we had at the time on the road. So I think it was a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So here you go. Cheers.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents. We are Brothers of the Serpent, me and Kyle, and of course,
UnchartedX,
Ben from UnchartedX, and we are here in Egypt, in Cairo, actually right next to the Giza Plateau. The pyramids are right there, which is fantastic. We're here for one night, so we've had a long trip, still not over yet. We had a 2-week tour. The classic UnchartedX Brothers of the Serpent tour, 2 weeks long, multiple, special permissions. It's just fantastic. Big, excellent group of people. And then we had an extension to the Red Sea where we went diving. Yusuf got dive certified.
Yeah.
And he is just like, this is great.
He's a fish.
Yeah, he's
a natural.
Took to it like
fish,
naturally, yeah.
It was great.
It was great. So we went on a bunch of dives with Yusuf, and then we went to, after the extension was over, we went up to Dahab, where we had never been. I had never been there. Have you been?
No. I've been wanting to go for years. We've talked about it with Yusuf for a long time. Just a chill little beach town, in the places like that in Thailand or wherever. Dahab reminded me of towns like that. It's quite a unique atmosphere for Egypt.
Yeah.
That way. It's really.
And we did some exploration and diving in Dahab as well, and we'll talk about that. But other things have happened, of course.
Apparently.
The big thing that happened is right after we get to Egypt, this story drops of massive structures beneath Khafre.
The pyramid just down here.
Just the middle pyramid out here.
Apparently. Just over there.
Yeah, right over there.
600 feet? 600 meters?
600 meters.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we need to talk about that first. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I don't know. I got thousands. I mean, I seriously had people emailing it to me and messaging me and constantly what about this? And I was just like, And we were, of course, in Egypt while the tour's going on, so it's not like, I'm not one to jump straight in and respond off the top of my head as it was. I had requests from all sorts of people to do that.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact.
Yeah, you did.
I did. That Piers Morgan thing I had an invite to, and I declined. I just didn't think I had a whole lot to add to the conversation, and I'm just not that interested in mainstream media, but yeah, it's like this crazy story came out. It really set the internet on fire. It was amazing to see, and I'm really happy for the people that did get videos out, because some of them are 900,000 views of noticing that. It was the hot topic.
Yeah. Yeah, a blessing and a curse. We're here while this massive story is dropping, but because we're here and working, like on the tour, we can't
Cash in.
couldn't publish anything about it. Just,
Yeah, I wouldn't have anyway. I mean, I'm typically the last one to publish like news. I don't do
Yeah.
news.
well, I mean, Kyle and I will do news stories, but it's a lot of times the news stories are 12 years old, you know. It's like breaking news. 10 years ago, they found
Breaking news.
which we have one of those later that Ben just published. He's like, hey,
Hey, I mean, this story,
It's just happened 10 years ago.
but seriously, this story actually is old. I mean, the data is old.
Yes,
Then
it actually is.
it's like the analysis, they already tried one publication.
Yes.
And it didn't really get any traction, and then
So that was, and that original public. So for people that don't know, living under a rock, right? It's the Italian team. I think it was. I mean, not all Italians, but at least a couple. I mean, the names. We've got an article up. We can get into the names, but I know the team, and I knew the technology when I saw it because we were actually here again. I think in 2022 when they had published like the news.
Yeah.
A previous their study that they used similar, the same SAR synthetic aperture radar technology to basically say that they found all these voids and structures inside the Great Pyramid.
right.
And it happened to be around the same time, I think, as the scan pyramids. Muon detection team sort of really announced, hey, we found this big void. It was like 2022, maybe? I don't know if that feels like that was, we already knew about it in 22. But
Yeah, and the SAR data showed another big void, but it was in a completely different place.
Yeah, it didn't
in the
quite
pyramid.
match
It didn't
up.
match up. No.
it didn't match up, and they showed these. Like, if we can go back and you can find the paper. I mean, I know it was under discussion on Discord. We had a few really good conversations about it with some very intelligent people that were in the know about satellite technologies, radar, and all this sort of stuff. To people that do math on the back of a napkin kind of stuff, which this is where you lose me. But yeah, it showed these huge big ramps and these structures are just massive scale comparative to anything that we, the known passages and chambers inside the Great Pyramid. And that came out, and it pretty much I felt like it just fell flat on like deaf ears.
Yeah.
I called it in the tweet when I was mad about it. I said like it came out to like thunderous silence.
Yeah.
Wasn't the one of the big problems that it isn't showing the actual known chambers? It's not like
Yeah, I mean, so I did look, and again, when I went back and I zoomed right in on that image, I actually, you can look at it here. I mean,
Yeah,
it might actually show it in like this light dark blue that's not, but it's like tiny compared to the other things. So
I just read that it wasn't. It didn't
doesn't
really
seem to
match
show
up.
it. I thought initially that it didn't show, like, because under Khafre, right, so as far as we know, the middle pyramid, Khafre and Khafre, the middle one is solid. Like this, and this is the other thing that I was skeptical about, because I know that the muon detection team, the scan pyramids team, had been down underneath, because the chambers are just in the bedrock below the pyramid, like in the center, and they had set their gear up and they were looking up. You didn't get the full coverage of the base, but it was like a cone shape going up from that base. You're getting like a lot of the body of the pyramid, and as far as I know, they basically said we didn't find anything with muon detection. And then these scans come out and they say, well, there happens to be 5 King's chambers.
Now, okay, but to be fair, the sensors that the muon detection guys, like the Scan Pyramids project, they're not down. They're not 600 meters down underground. They only can detect what's above, because they're however low their sense.
Right. And
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, yes. So muon detection is only really from looking up.
Yeah,
It's a cone going upward from the detector. Yeah.
If there were I mean, look, that muon detection stuff works. Like, and it can find small voids on the Great Pyramid. They found that void just above the chevrons at the entrance, and they drilled a hole in, and everyone's like, oh, wow, little
Yeah.
chamber.
So they have
It's quite
confirmation of
It works.
yes.
And so then you have the SAR scans, and like, forget about this. We'll talk about the stuff below, like really deep in the ground. But they talk also that there are 5 King's Chamber-like jed pillar structures in the thing that basically look like King's Chambers. With,
So-
In Khafre. Yeah.
Khafre, and those didn't show up, as far as I know, with the muon detection
So
on that.
just like what I've read, and like I talked to one of the guys on the tour, Brian. It was he was the first one that like just basically laid out like, here's how SAR works. Right, it's this radar, but it's a moving radar. So you got a satellite or a drone or a plane or whatever that's that's bouncing this radar off the ground. And so it has two things. It has distance of reflection, but then it has Doppler because the device is moving. The sensors are moving. So then they'll get reflections from back here, and it has the Doppler effect or the reflections from here, where, in the direction that it's moving. So you have like a lot more data to work with, and it's way higher resolution.
Right.
The other aspect that they're using here is seismic. So it has to do with like these small seismic shifts. So the radar data is let's say it's coming down and it's taking a sample of the surface, and then the surface shifts a little bit due to seismic activity, and it takes another sample. Because it has this Doppler, it can detect basically like two axes of motion and correct for its own motion using the Doppler. And that, I think, is what is going on with this, the way they're trying to claim that they're getting this depth image deep underneath the ground, because typically SAR is just a topography, it's a surface map. And now it can penetrate maybe a meter or something into like ice and various different materials. But it's
the seismic.
They had said that it was this seismic resonance which made the pyramid like transparent.
And that was it. That was, to be honest, I mean, and this is frankly like some of the language of like transparent. Crystal.
Like a crystal.
There's some
kind of like
language in it where I was just like, I was quite skeptical when
immediately I was like, nope.
Yes.
And
however,
a big part of that for me was that immediately when I looked at the structures themselves, they didn't look anything like anything that we see in Egypt, like these deep shafts that we do go down.
I will say, I think that's okay. We don't necessarily, if some structures like this did exist, they may not be Egyptian at all.
It's true, yeah. I mean,
well, yeah. So
I can't argue with that, but
it could predate pyramids, but I mean, like,
yeah. But okay,
maybe. But what we seem to see is that the older stuff is influencing the later civilization.
Yeah.
We have some ambiance.
Yeah, we do have.
We left the door open for the ambiance. You're probably not picking it up, but
yeah, you won't pick it up.
Kairoian ambiance.
Something happened down there. It sounded like a car.
And like with trash pickup, car crash, maybe a horse cart running into a camel. I mean, we'll never know. Nazla del Samar, man, anything goes. Especially on weekends. But yeah.
So yeah, I just, where do we find like massive cylindrical shafts with spiral staircases? Now there are some wells that we've seen, like for example at Kamumbo, there's a circular, like a cylindrical shaft, and there is like a staircase entering it, but not like this
scale of it.
No, this is very small. This is like Nile flood. You know, the flooding, the waters would come up and down, and they called it the
Nileometer.
The Nileometer. It's measuring the depth of the Nile. Nilemeter. Exactly.
Nilemeter, man.
Small structures like this. There's one on Elephantine Island.
Just behind the museum.
Yeah. But these are sandstone structures. They're later.
And these are monstrous. Like, these are
600 meters.
I mean, yes, and they're gigantic and supposedly open up into two giant
80
meter square.
Yeah. And then that seems to have like
tunnels,
pathways and tunnels going off in there. So that was the main thing. The first thing that happened to me is when I'm starting to read it and I'm like, okay, this is interesting science, right? And I don't know about this SAR concept, right? But obviously I'm not an expert in this kind of imaging, but we know people who are. But the point is that once I started seeing, I don't know, when you start reading a paper, you want it to be, I don't know, you kind of, yeah. You don't want to see any like, oh, wow, this could be the halls of Avinti or whatever.
Right, there was some language. And, to be fair, and it is, I mean, admittedly, I think one of the guys in my Discord pointed this out. I mean, it is ad hominem. However, some of these guys are associated with some publications and books in the past that definitely embrace.
Yeah.
It's a bit more crystal woo, and just, divine providence, like just this, like they've been chosen to reveal this to that kind of language.
Yeah, right.
So immediately that kind of put me off it a bit. I mean, look, and I'll say this, however, having also then talked to some people and done a bit more research, my conclusion on it, we can talk about the findings and we can read some of the article, but my overall place on this is I think the technology seems really promising, frankly. Like,
Yeah.
However, it's like I don't know how they go from the scan results to the renderings of these images that have been circulating the internet and setting everyone on fire and basically creating clickbait and news headlines. And, you know, Piers Morgan and people like that are like wanting to talk about it. And so it's, and as far as I know, also that is a bit of a black box procedure. We don't know really how they got to it. And I think admittedly they do also say that these are the author's illustrations or estimates of these structures.
It's
not an actual
graphical
derivation from the scan.
Right. It's a graphical reconstruction of what they think they came up with from the scan data.
Squeak really hard. I mean, you see the scan results. It's like these wavy lines, and it is, you know, like you said, it's this model that combines data from two different sources.
Yeah.
The synthetic aperture radar stuff with the Doppler effect on the surface, and then these seismic shifts that, you know, and my point initially also was like, well, you know, how can we use this thing on a mine, like a known mine? Like there's some deep mines, you know, a kilometer deep.
Yeah.
And they've got shafts, these subterranean mines. How about you image that? Because you're going to see voids. And, you know, I think I made some smart-ass comment about the CIO's calling because they want to know where the bunkers are under the Kremlin.
Sure.
And just pointed at the Kremlin. They used 20-year-old, you know, Italian weather satellites and pointed at the Kremlin and figure out where the bunkers are. I mean,
I think that's the trick here, is that they're suggesting that perhaps the pyramid is special because of the resonance.
so you need a giant pyramid on
You
top.
need that, like there's something going on with this, like it's tuned into the seismic resonance of the earth or something like that, that's making it like a crystal. Like they pointed out. This is part of the reason why I think I'm just like super skeptical as well, because it's like, I don't know. It would be amazing if that was actually what was going on.
I want to believe, bro. I'm like,
Yeah, but I'll tell you this. We'll tell you this.
They're motoring this all the way.
If you, my problem with it is this: if you want a crystal to resonate at a specific frequency, it has to have all of the mass. Right? Like, let's say you design this crystal perfectly and it has this certain mass and it's going to resonate at a certain frequency.
Right.
If you remove a shit ton of that mass from the crystal, the frequency of resonance changes. So how is it still acting like this perfect crystal when it's so, like, there's been millions of tons of stone removed from it?
also not solid, right? I mean, and to be fair, there were also some other mistakes where they said that, I know in the briefing, and they said things like, well, the pyramid is on sand. It's not on sand. It's
on
They also
bedrock,
said
yeah.
that the pyramid is made from granite.
Yeah.
It's not made of granite. It's made of limestone.
Yeah. It has
one-
some granite casing stones.
Maybe a
few.
Yeah, maybe two courses were cased in granite, but that's it. Like,
And they're not there. I mean, most of them are gone. There's like
Yeah.
there's remnants of like,
it's like 1% or less of it.
Yeah, that was one of the main errors I saw in the 2022 paper. Is they say the Kun Khufu pyramid is comprised primarily of granite, and I'm like, what? No, like this is this seems like an easy error to pick up.
Yes, and those things are the things that, like, when you make extraordinary claims like this, and you know you have to be skeptical of them, and they do
Don't.
require extraordinary evidence. And
don't
make
fucking say it.
Little. Okay, right.
Don't say that.
However, all I'm saying is like little mistakes like that don't help credibility.
That's right.
Yes.
That kind of mistake does not help the credibility.
Yeah, because anyone that knows anything about them says this thing isn't made of granite.
Who's telling them it's made of granite? That's what I'm wondering. Like, which one of the researchers, you know,
The granite.
yeah, is telling you that because obviously it seems like none of them have been here.
I don't know. Yeah, when Zayu asked, kicked a fit up, right? Because he's like, they have no permission. There's nothing there.
You don't need permission.
There was something there. We knew about it already.
Yeah.
You don't need permission to look at it with satellites.
Yeah.
I know. And
I'm sorry, Zahi, but they don't need permission to do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the other, let's look.
$400.
The other issue is they haven't yet released the complete analysis, the data that is how they got the algorithm or whatever to do the analysis to get the imaging that they got.
Yeah,
right?
they're saying that their method that we use in their, I can read it. There's a quick in the abstract. A problem with synthetic aperture radar is that due to the poor penetrating action of electromagnetic waves inside solid bodies, The capability to observe inside distributed targets is precluded. Under these conditions, imaging action is provided only on the surface of distributed targets. The present work describes an imaging method based on the analysis of micromovements on the Khafre Pyramid, which from now on I'll just refer to as Khufu, which are usually generated by background seismic waves. The obtained results proved to be very promising, as high-resolution, full 3D tomographic imaging of the pyramid's interior and subsurface was achieved. Khufu becomes transparent when observed in the micro-movement domain. So, at least in that, they're not necessarily saying that only the pyramid does this. They're saying the micro-movements, the Doppler, all this stuff makes the pyramid itself transparent.
Okay.
Right.
That's,
Now,
that's another way of saying we can see structures underground.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can see through it.
it's that terminology like, oh, the pyramid becomes like a crystal.
Yeah.
Which kind of throws me off. But, I mean, looking into SAR data.
However, right after that, they say, based on this novelty, which does make me think that what you're saying, they may be hinting that this is a novel thing, that the pyramid becomes transparent, right? Based on this novelty, we have completely reconstructed internal objects, observing and measuring structures that have never been discovered before. Now, again, this is not Khafre. This is about Khufu, the Great Pyramid. This is the 2022 study, which we were talking about earlier. And I did scroll down and look at the map, and they do have the known chambers, but it doesn't tell you that reconstruction is only using their data.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like they've put in all these chambers that are supposed to sort of wrap around the base, and
ramps.
Yeah, all the ramps and everything. And then they have the known passages and chambers, but it doesn't say that this whole thing is based off our
data.
Yeah. Right. I mean,
That's where we need transparency. We need transparency for that.
So, all right, great. The pyramid becomes transparent. Will your process be transparent? That's the question.
And I think that's where a lot of people landed. It's like, yep, okay, the technology seems to be promising.
Yeah.
It probably needs still some proving out. I mean, and it then just transparency on their methods to how did you get from A to B with the data. But hey, I mean, look, if this shit is there, like, yeah. I mean, it's
if it's there, it's full of water and sediment. Like that's the other. I gotta go on more on the Skirp side. Sorry, guys, but not only do the structures look nothing like any other, deep like subterranean chambers or shafts that we actually see and we can actually visit. They look nothing like that. The geometry of them. They are so deep that they probably, I haven't looked up to see how deep the actual limestone is, but they probably end up going into granite, bedrock. Yeah. They're sitting entirely in the water table.
Oh, yeah.
They're, I mean
150 feet down is water. At the bottom of the Osiris shaft, which is square, by the way.
It is square. And square. And all the other shafts.
All the other shafts.
Go and look at.
They're all square also.
They're all square.
No, much smaller than these things.
Even huge ones, like the biggest ones, are still square.
The southern shaft and everything underneath the step pyramid, everything's square.
So I'm just like...
Which doesn't suit being round.
No, but it's very strange.
It is. And I just wondered, the other thing I saw about stuff like, man, they'd say they have a 1 meter resolution with this technique.
Yeah.
So how do you even know a spiral staircase that's wheeling its way precisely around the outside of this giant?
It's got to be extrapolation. I mean,
it has to be extrapolation.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a hell of a claim. It's I don't know what else.
So,
what was the best comment? Right? You guys released some comments on
initial comments. Yeah.
And then there was one guy,
grumpy morning Ben.
There was one guy that was like, okay, but I'm gonna keep believing this.
He said, he said, stop infringing on my suspension of belief.
Yeah. I'm just gonna believe this.
Continue to believe this is true for a couple more weeks.
Yeah.
I was like, a good comment. Yes. Stop impinging on my. Yeah, the suspension of my belief.
Yeah. Can the world just be cool for a little bit longer, Ben?
Can this be a mystery?
So good.
Yeah. I mean, hey, man, like I said, want to believe. It would be validating, like Jesus. Like, if they actually figured out, okay, there's this giant superstructures somehow carved into the bedrock a kilometer down, like with nothing seen before, beyond any known technology of any version of humanity that exists, including today, unless you count.
And then they go all the way down there and find a wooden box with a Ptolemaic pharaoh in it.
We have found the tomb of Khufu.
Yeah, found him. He was down here last night.
It's got some badly scratched
hieroglyphs
areas on there. Yeah, like Khufu and
Like a
Radioactivity.
skeleton next to it. Like, this is the guy that carries down Ethan.
But there were also chambers.
I also like let's go to the mythological part of it. Like this idea that it connects to that this is the reason why they have the mythology of the Duat and the underworld and Osiris going. I mean, this is really cool.
Andrew Collins wrote a great article about. I mean, yes, this is really cool. But
Who is he? Yeah, so on Graham Hancock's website, there's an article by Andrew Collins, which is excellent, which kind of just goes through the details real quick, and then he gives you his thoughts. And the thing about Khafre being the tomb of Hermes,
Yeah.
that's cool, right? Hermes also Thoth Tahoti. Now, it's just this concept of it. It's the tomb of a god, you know. Like, dude, we were talking about this in the first episodes we ever published.
Yes.
That these are tombs of gods, which is
Right.
why the entire Egyptian civilization, all the nobles, all the pharaohs, everybody wanted to be associated with this area because it was already ancient when they got here,
Yeah.
and they thought that their gods were actually buried here.
Yes.
Entombed here. And so you
And
want
they
to...
built the temples with these gigantic doors and super high ceilings. Just,
Yeah.
so I can get out.
Yeah.
Massive, like the gods were enormous.
Right.
Just like,
Yeah.
that's
So-
such a cool idea. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I love that. Like this...
Yeah.
And then, you know, so I'm reading this article by Andrew Collins earlier today, and we're sitting up on the deck, and I'm like, Tomb of Hermes. And I look out there, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, the view is spectacular. The view we had from this little hotel.
I have to go
Doesn't
into
get any better.
as well the way he brought in the Taj Tepelair civilization.
yeah.
Was just so good. And I didn't know this, but we'd gone through the lithics
Yeah.
on Göbekli Tepe and, you know, on our video of Göbekli Tepe, and it was like these Helwan points, which are some of the oldest ones at the bottom layers, you know, layer 1 or whatever it is.
PPNA or whatever.
Yeah.
PPNA people. Helwan is in Egypt. It's in Cairo.
here.
Yeah, it's right here. Within
I
sight
never
of
realized.
Giza Plateau.
Yeah. So these same lithics from the PPNA people that became the what's being called now the Taj Tepelair civilization are here, right in sight of the. So it's like you imagine, and we've been talking about this over the course of the tour with everyone, pyramid construction, and like the possibility that. Well, it's multiple factors, but we find. You know, prehistoric or Paleolithic stone tool things laying around these, like almost every single one of these magnificent sites. And it's just another indicator that people have revered these sites for so long, so much longer than just when they decided to build a freaking giant triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, going back to like, if there was already something, they found something here, whatever this structure is, if it does exist, and this is why they revere the place, and it's sort of like the central complex of all of.
And this is so one of the places we always
So
visit
cool.
on the tour is the temple at Edfu.
Yes, the temple
With
of
the
Horus.
the temple of Horus at Edfu, with the building text, the Edfu building text in it. And so of course we take people over to show them the area that's of specific interest to us, that has the carving of Thoth and basically the description, the creation story, the description of the home of the primeval ones, you know, this place that was destroyed in like a cataclysmic rising of waters, or it sank, and they traveled here and attempted to rebuild the place of creation. Like they wanted a new place of creation, right? And so they tried to recreate the home of the primeval ones somewhere here in Egypt.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, a lot of it.
this is the Zep Tepi guys, right?
Yes. It speaks of the primeval ones.
Yeah, the primeval ones. So, and then the other thing we always hear about these pyramids is that they were built on a primeval mound, right? A pre-existing primeval primordial mound.
They didn't say primordial shafts.
Right.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it didn't.
It does fit.
No, the mound is the collapsed rubble of whatever was on the surface.
Okay.
You know, the tops of the elevators that came up the.
Yeah. Well, this actually brings up, speaking of the primordial mound, the bedrock, and the and all of that. Like, one of the problems I have with this is like noticing, particularly from what you've been doing and in other places you've been showing it. We looked at it today at my Doom. The bedrock here can it sustain? You think the bedrock, if it was limestone, could actually sustain shafts of this and structures of this? Let's just assume it's 6 or 7, like 500 meters of limestone before it hits the granite, whatever, right? But it's limestone based on the quality of what we've seen. Like, there's a reason that the Egyptians that Kyle and Russ's work on pyramid construction, and when you look at places like Abu Rawash or Zaywad Al Aran and even my Doom, where they couldn't use the bedrock to like just carve a tunnel. They had to carve it, and then they had to case it in blocks because the quality of the bedrock is quite poor in place. And even under the Great Pyramid, there's cracks, there are massive cracks and fissures in the natural bedrock. Like there is a cave system down there. Like there is like cavities and caves, like natural ones.
Yeah.
In the bedrock.
There would need to be a major like a layer, like a very super high quality layer, very thick, deep down, probably, I don't know how low these shafts or whatever are supposed to start, but there would need to be a roof structure in the bedrock. In other words, a bedrock layer that was thick enough and a dense enough material and a good enough quality material where they could then open up this massive shaft and then dig all the way. I don't think the vertical walls would be an issue, but whatever the roof structure is.
Yeah, because, even as big as the tiles are, and if you go in one of the best features of that middle pyramid is the bedrock engineering that's happened around it, right? So it's the piling system. So they're like on the northwestern side, they had to like cut down 30 feet because it's built onto a slope. So they cut down 30 feet. Then on the northeastern side, they had to build it up. There's like 2 or 3 courses of these massive, massive foundation stones. They're like a meter thick. Some of them are like 10 meters wide. But even then, like, these aren't big enough to like span the roof of like the proposed sizes of these shafts. And you've added like 4 to 5 million tons of stone on top of it in terms of the pyramid. So, because this thing, was 8 of these shafts, right? And they pretty much come right out of the bottom of this thing and then go down deep enough where 4 of them go into one big cube and 4 go to the other. Yeah,
it's
all looks
structurally it would need to be
solid.
You can imagine if anything failed in one.
You would
lose.
Sinkhole.
You get a sinkhole.
Yeah. In the other like shafts that we know about, the square ones, like for example the Tomb of Osiris, the Osiris shafts. Yeah,
it's quite small.
It's very small, but what Kyle noticed and he detailed in the pyramid construction is that it goes down, and then they hit like say 3 or 4 foot thick, extremely strong layer, and then they build a room beneath that.
It becomes the ceiling.
It becomes the roof. So you can kind of make an opening, and then you have another shaft that goes down, penetrates, and then there's another strong layer, and then there's another room. And the rooms are small, right? They're not huge.
But they did this also at the step pyramid. When we go down beneath the step pyramid, you see this.
Yeah,
they will spread out a network of like, you might have some reasonably large chambers, like at the very bottom level of the step pyramid. You go down the trapdoor, you go down the 30-foot ladder, whatever, and then there's.
But that reason that's so deep is because they went down before another layer. Yeah, so they could down there. That could be the roof of all their freaking tunnels.
Yeah, and under it, like I said, they scurry off. There's tunnels going off.
Yeah,
all over the place, and some reasonably large chambers. But it does depend on that solid layer of limestone. I just look at all that stuff sitting under again, I'd estimate what's the Great Pyramid is like 6 million tons, right? Is that the figure?
I have no idea.
Like that. Like,
I can't remember.
It's like 2.3 million. It's 2 million block blocks at like 2 to 3 tons a pop. So
it's 2.3 times 2.3.
I mean, you got the other 6. So the other one's not much smaller, and so let's say 4 to 5, whatever, 5 million tons. that's a lot of mass on top of any not what is in lots of places pretty poor quality bedrock.
Yeah.
To try and
Now
do stuff.
Giza
Giza has-
is a little bit special in that from many of the other places we've been, it has some of the best bedrock, which is why I think
Very sharp.
the reason that the descending passageway is just cut solidly
bedrock,
through the bedrock.
Yeah, until
There's
you get
no
to
casing.
until you get to the cracks, and then it's like
Yeah, there's a few fissures in there,
cracks
yeah,
and fissures,
which
like, it's like-
which might be also some of the SAR data. These huge vertical fissures going way down deep into the bedrock. If there was seismic data, they might see what seems to be a void, and it's not necessarily a void, but it's definitely where the two chunks of bedrock would be resonating at different.
right, and it might show up and be interpreted as a void. I don't know
Exactly.
But that's been I know that's the contention of several people who talk about the decay of networks and the natural fissures and cracks.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's what everything is either. Like, I there are chambers beneath the Sphinx. Like that,
Absolutely.
We know there are chambers and structures that we had not been revealed to the public, or who knows what. The long history of excavations and secret expeditions to try and find them. There are chambers beneath the Sphinx. Nothing of the magnitude or the depth that we're talking about. Like the stuff beneath the Sphinx. Look, there's 2 ground penetrating radar surveys that happened. John Anthony West and Robert Schoch did one, and then the Shore expedition in the late 90s with Joseph Shaw, Joseph Jahota, Boris Said. Boris Said was witness to both of these expeditions. Both of them used ground penetrating radar. Both of them found the existence of regular, square chambers beneath the Sphinx, not particularly deep, like maybe 5 or 10
Well, yeah,
meters.
TPR can't go that deep. It's not going to go 60
It's not going to go. You're right, right, but small chambers,
Right, small ones, yeah.
regular, like what you'd expect kind of chambers.
Yeah.
So
Enough to stash a piece, the most important piece of a library or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then that gets dismissed as it's natural fissures and cracks by the archaeologists.
You know what, that's-
Painter and Hawass, but I'm just saying there's stuff there, but it's just like, man, this other thing is.
That's another thing. You just made me think of this other problem. We already have megastructures. Like the megastructures are already there, the pyramids. But high technology often presents itself in smaller things. Mm-hmm. So it's weird that there would be this other huge megastructure rather than why would they need it? What would possibly be the purpose of 8 fucking massive shafts?
Okay, too big cute. I mean,
I don't know. Maybe this is not a good.
the speculation there.
Yeah, I can do it. I can take this part.
Get it?
I was just sort of connecting it to the ancient stories, the Zep Tepi, the home of the primeval ones, that they wanted to rebuild the place of creation here. If they had just survived some kind of cataclysmic event on the surface, you come here, you build a bunker. I mean, that's the first thing I think of. You're building yourself a vara, right? So you show up, you're like, oh, look at this plateau. You do some SAR, you're like, well, the bedrock looks pretty good. You do the SAR. Yeah, bedrock looks pretty good. There's some caves down there, maybe we can widen them, drill a bunch of holes, get all your equipment down there, right? Maybe there's not even spiral staircases, it's just a screw.
Yeah.
Just run your shit down there.
Anti-gravity.
Yeah, just right. You're anti-gravity, whatever. You get all your equipment
They're the
down there.
striations, the drills.
Striation, yeah, that's it. You get all your equipment down there. You make a couple of big chambers to stage all your building materials. You dig some tunnels and you start building your city, right? Whatever it is underground. And then eventually, when you're no longer afraid of the surface, or when the ending of the ice age is stopping, you don't know you have the Younger Dryas coming up yet because it's 20,000 years ago, and you're like, all right, let's go back up onto the surface. Same thing. It's kind of grassy up there now. Seems good. You go up on the surface, you build some structures on the top, and you start spreading out. You're like, oh, there's a great river here. It's got a whole branch coming along here. Let's build some triangles. And then the Younger Dryas happens.
Yeah.
And 4,000 or 5,000 years later, some dudes in butt flaps show up and they're like, holy crap, look at these triangles. And then they find some things, they find some documents, maybe they find some metal books, whatever. It's got lots of pictograms. and they just built an entire cargo cult civilization.
1,000-ton statues just
Yeah,
staring at
like-
you in the sand.
They're like, I'm tired of making pottery. Look at there. I just found 100,000 stone vases. We never have to make pottery again.
Yeah. Let's make them like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know? Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. Like the refuge one is there.
Yeah.
I also liked. I mean, this is the technology. I mean, this is any speculation to me. It's really hard to get in because it's just like, look, if the answer's outside of our current understanding of technology, it's just like space lasers and
Yeah.
and whatever. You can't. I just can't. It's hard to envision. And Chris Dunn did a wonderful job of describing this situation in his Serapeum chapter in his new book, The Tesla Connection. It was really interesting. But he describes, he shows you some examples of potential technological uses for that site. That on one hand, it could be technology so small we can't recognize it, and the other thing, it could be technology so large we don't really recognize it. And this could be, let's assume all this is true, and maybe it is part of some giant harmonic balancer for the planet, some Earth system thing, like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's there's a potential technological, I think, explanation for some of these things. Just as, and I go the same route when I look at the sites at Giza, and you look at the obvious signs for infrastructure underneath the floor levels. You look at the signs of something happening on these sites where you've got basalt that's been melting down because it's been in contact with limestone. It's just like, I think there could be technological explanations for these things, and it's just we don't have the frame of reference to know what that is yet. Like, it's just it just looks like a bunch of rocks to us, and we say it's all ceremonial and religious or whatever. But there could be a technological explanation for it as well if it was some sort of functioning machine. Because at the end of the day, the pyramids and the pyramid builders are connected to the vases and the statues and the things that absolutely show precision. They show machining. They show evidence for high technology, essentially. And you just don't develop that unless you're chasing a specific function. It's just not how we work. There's no reason to develop precision unless it's for function. Once you have it, then you use it for lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Toasters are so well made now. We don't need well-made toasters, but that's what our manufacturing plants push out because it's just the way it works. But we develop.
Well made. Why aren't they clear, Ben?
I know.
So I can see how toasted my toast is while it's toasted.
That could be that's the next step. And my wife will complain that they don't toast both sides of the bread evenly. And so,
Yeah.
But the panels on the outside are quite the gaps.
Yes, you're right. The gaps are very small.
Axel machine, yes, they're cheap. These hands. You're not spending enough on your toaster. Bet there's some sort of Bosch toaster you can buy. Right. That's like a $1,200 toaster. It'll toast your bread. But I don't know.
So will a pear burner. Just
Yeah. Toaster.
good to go.
Yep. I mean,
And I can see it toasting.
open file. Just sit back. Functional. Although, there's a relationship between precision and function, is my point. And
Yeah.
you don't develop that unless you're chasing function. And that's
I completely agree.
it sort of all loosely connects to this stuff, and I'm like, man, I don't know. Is this? Yeah, it's so challenging. It's like if you needed to build an underground refuge. I mean, maybe you just had the capability to do the stuff they're talking about. That's what we want. You know what? I don't need the city to be 200 meters down. Let's make it a kilometer down.
Yeah.
Like 200 meters seems sufficient.
Maybe you want it in the granite.
Go find the granite. I mean, you know
Well,
what
yeah.
I mean? Like,
Well, you don't want it in the granite near the surface.
fair enough.
You want it in the
That's a
granite.
long way. I mean, what is going to hit Jesus? That's a hell of a bucket.
That's what I'm saying. You want it in the granite below the kilometer of limestone.
That might get liquefied. In what sort of, what world are you ever coming back to? If there's an explosion or a disaster that can hit that, like that you are so afraid of it. I don't know.
I agree. I mean,
that's
something that powerful would wipe out the pyramid above it and
all life on the planet.
break the. It break in. I mean, it's they're not deep under the surface.
I'm sorry. I meant you want to be in the granite because the limestone sucks.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
You want it, yeah.
We don't even know if it's limestone, right? I mean,
Yeah.
fun to
We
look
don't know
at.
how far down the granite.
I'm sure there is a.
We know they hit
somebody
granite.
knows.
We know they hit granite like 150 feet down below the Sphinx. We don't
Well,
know.
but they hit work granite. It's definitely not.
It's worked.
It's a piece of granite.
Yeah.
It's not part of the.
But yeah, we don't know how far down the granite goes.
I mean, look, the granite doesn't pop
600
out.
meters.
The granite doesn't pop out if you go south into like 600 miles. Like it's
yeah.
that-
Yeah,
that's
you
what
have
I'm
to go
saying.
all the way
It's
to...
like, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like slow tilt.
Yeah.
It just sticks up over there. Yeah, I agree. I'm just giving you guys reasons. Like, why do you want it that far down there? Well,
yours was the most poetic, the best reason. Probably is. I'm just.
you want to be deep because whatever's happening on the surface sucks.
Why wouldn't you dig one shaft and then open up
That I don't know. I don't know why you need multiple
8 shafts?
That's what I said. And-
because
and
it's
specifically
what
that
I
makes
think
it weak.
What they're trying it makes it weak.
Yeah.
And also it sort of suggests that like this is a bigger machine.
Exactly.
Like than what we've been looking at. We've been looking at these things and we've been crawling through these little chambers and we're like, wow, this feels like a machine. And now they're just like, wait, but you haven't actually seen the machine.
Yeah.
Like here's the actual.
This is just the button you press on top.
Yeah, exactly, because they're not connected. This.
Yeah, you're just looking to see like
The
these.
spring's broken. You just need to press on.
I'm sorry if it's. I just can't. I can't believe it. I just am so not believing this right now. Like I'm just. It's too perfect. It's too on the nose.
I don't know.
It's so on the nose that it's like, nope. That can't be true.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if what they found in the scanning, like not their image that they came up with, but like when you look at the scan data and you can see some, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if that was just changes in the quality of the limestone and also some natural
Yeah.
caves. Dude, we know the plateau is riddled with cave systems.
Yeah.
Right? Like Hugh Newman mentioned to us, and also
Tomb of the Bird.
Andrew Collins mentioned like Tomb of the Birds is a known entrance to a bunch of caves. Yusuf has discussed how his father used to go in these things and play in them when they were kids. Like, it's known that it's riddled with cave systems, and people have gone in there and never come out. Right?
Yeah.
And they probably have been doing that for thousands of years.
Skeleton on the spikes.
Yeah, there's plenty of skeletons on spikes in there, and down in cracks and fissures.
Great way to go.
Yeah, that's dude. That is my destiny, bro.
You want to be one of those guys?
Yeah, somebody has to be that guy. You open the door, it's like,
Fantastic. Yeah, but hey, at the same time, I think it's entirely possible that Dyson spheres are out there in the universe. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's just the scale of what is possible. We're just at this tiny infancy of our own technological development. We're in the spark.
I
of
agree.
light. We're barely even a spark at this point.
Look,
It's just...
history won't harm me for not believing something that was too on the nose.
No,
Like in 6 months, I could be like, okay, yeah, that's legit. Like they released all the data, they released all their methods.
but right now, no. And look, I'm on the skeptical side.
It's not like I'm trying to be this way. I just can't be the other way. Like I can't. I can't believe it.
I honestly, the vases, the precision in the vases to me is a much more significant
Yeah.
finding. It's not as exciting.
And it's not on the nose. That's what I'm saying. It's like this is so strange, so out of what you would think. Like, all right, like just think. I'm not like Chris Dunn, pyramid power plant. Like really cool idea, right?
Yeah.
But then you just like you try to do that, you try to make that work, and it's like, well, maybe there's no real confirmation. And then like way over here is this tiny little artifact that is like so easily explained in another way. Oh, canopic jars and blah 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 and everything, whatever. Like so many different possible uses, but hidden in it is this super high precision, which. It's not on the nose. That's my point. It's so weird. It's so. That's part of the thing that's compelling about it to me.
Yeah, it's the vases are more reachable, and I think they're also certainly a lot more verifiable at this point. I mean, it's just you can.
Yeah.
It's no one's arguing with the data, right? People bitch and moan about provenance. Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about all. I mean, I spent an hour and a half talking about it in a video before I left for Egypt, but
But we have Vase news.
Yeah, we do.
Gonna get into it anyway.
However, ultimately, we want to wrap up on this topic. And I am. Look,
You know what?
I want to believe.
Screw these guys. I'm all in.
Okay. I want to be all in on that.
I'm playing the speculative guy on the podcast, but I am in complete agreement that it's amazing as a possibility. I have no doubt that there are lots of tunnels and stuff under the plateau. But this, like Kyle said, it seems, I don't know, if they hadn't mentioned any of the underworld woo stuff, I would be much more inclined. But
Yeah, and look, hey, I'm not going to annoy any of the researchers for whatever reason watch this podcast. I mean, prove us wrong. I mean, I would love nothing more than to be set straight on this and to somebody to drill a hole down there and look at it and go, oh my God,
yeah,
there's a giant 80 meter across cube.
Yeah, where's the entrance?
670. I don't even see that it connects to the.
It doesn't seem to connect to
I don't know. It's changed. Like there's the other we mentioned it briefly, but the King's Chamber structures inside the pyramid, I don't seem like they're connected to it. It's stuff like they're randomly scattered through it, and I'm like, there's no.
Yeah.
There's like that one.
Oh,
is like
that's the other
one
problem.
is the-
In their representation of the data, all the King's Chamber structures are actually in the bedrock.
Really?
Because the bedrock is like a big mound.
It's the Primeval.
And they've got them at the base of the pyramid.
Yeah, that's actually a really good
and
point.
it's like these king chambers with the relieving chambers are also in the bedrock. What do you need the relieving chamber for?
Yeah. Well, even the relieving chambers aren't really.
I know that it's not God, there's so many layers deep. Relieving chambers are not relieving anything.
Yeah. Yes.
They're actually adding weight to the structure.
We already asked what the relieving chambers are for
The
in the
chevron
paper.
blocks. Yeah. The chevron blocks above the relieving chambers are actually doing the relieving.
Yeah.
But you make an excellent point in that the pyramid is in some places 7-8 courses of it are bedrock.
Yeah.
They are bedrock.
It's like they literally carve as it's into that slope. So on the backside, it's like they carve the bedrock there, like the Sphinx. It's shaped from bedrock, and then they melded into it. And then presumably in the middle, similar thing. They left a huge amount of bedrock to lock that thing in, and they're not distinguishing that on this scan. It's like they imagine seems like it's a flat base. If I'm
Yeah, exactly.
off the
It's
top of my head.
like a
Yeah.
flat base with all these king.
and that's not what the pyramid is.
Yeah. So those King's Chamber-like structures literally would have to have been cored out of the bedrock. Now maybe because I don't think that those sort of stacked chambers above the King's Chamber are relieving chambers. So even if you built one, say at the base of the step pyramid, like down in the step pyramid, you could still stack that on top of that multi-piece box.
Yeah.
Because maybe it had a function.
Yeah, it's like
So it's possible that they could be in the bedrock.
I mean, if they're there, I just don't think that. I just think they would. The muon detection scans are like doesn't show anything, and they can those voids. They can pick up voids of that size. I'm just
And they were in the subterranean.
And they were in the- they were in the chamber
They should have
beneath
picked
it.
up those voids. Yeah,
at least one or two of them.
we've got confirmation that they did their job right, at least in one case.
Yeah, and they drilled a hole into it, and like there's
And
the
there it
chamber
is.
We showed you just like
Boom.
these dots here. This is probably a chamber, and there's a chamber, and I'm pretty sure somebody's got confirmation that they're right about the big void at this point. Like, I think
Some suspicious ladders in the Grand Gallery.
ladders in that.
Yeah, they've been up in top of the. They probably went up into their relieving chambers and did some.
Yeah, that would be the best place to look.
Yeah.
If you can get up into that top one.
Yeah, you just drill straight
this way,
through, yeah.
this way.
Yeah.
You would probably have the clearest path from a known area to get to.
Yeah.
and then
I think they've already done it.
Those
Oh yeah, I mean they closed that damn pyramid.
Yeah.
chevron blocks above the entrance
Yeah.
are just incredible, and the amount of work that it would have taken to angle all the blocks around them, because the masonry around those chevron blocks is also huge compared to the other. There's this whole other sort of internal structure
Yeah, like tilts down.
around those things because they're all tilted.
It's like around the descending passage.
Yes, just those.
like-
the
it's like
entire descending
whole-
passage is an
Several
enormous
courses deep.
structure.
It's like it's massive.
Yeah.
It's a small space, but the actual structure of it is huge.
It's enormous. Yeah.
It's cool.
So it would be. I'm just saying, like we've seen this time and time again. Like these small passages have huge. I mean, Gantenbrink found this in certain cases, like when he was looking at the shafts, how the joints change as the shaft is going around the Grand Gallery or whatever. Like it's far away from that structure, but the joints in the blocks stop being this regular, and they start changing their angles and all this kind of stuff because it's just nearby the Grand Gallery.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can imagine that if there are these massive King's Chamber-like structures or these huge voids underneath, that there would be some kind of structural indicator far away from that thing. And then they would have to be huge. Yeah. Corbelled ceilings or however they did it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, we were looking at it on that pyramid stand up there, looking at it today, going, you see that band of the courses, that they're very clear and consistent, the same height courses.
Yes.
It's like a band of consistency. And that is the area around the King's Show, the Grand Gallery, right? Yeah. It's just like they had to
made it very consistent.
They had to keep that structure inside the thing.
Yep.
And you can see it on the outside. And
I think I think it's the 19th course. You can see real thick band going all the way around, and that's the entrance.
Yeah, that's the entrance.
And you just sit from a distance. You can just see it. Just it's so cool. I mean, it's like that feature is expressed all the way around the entire perimeter. The feature of this tiny little frickin' 3x3 hole entrance is expressed all the way around the exterior of the pyramid.
I love going in there. It's just imagining, I can imagine the whole king's funeral procession just regally proceeding through this 3x3 sabbath. Like the nights of music and praise and just with all of the...
All right, what are the
pomp and ceremony and dignity that you muster without stairs or rails and all the modern conveniences that you have when we go in there and still struggle.
Yeah.
I mean,
Make sure that
clearly that's what it's made for.
Make sure that the first musician behind me is the flautist, not the drummer, please. The drummer in there.
Well, I mean, it is perfect. You just get the sarcophagus in and you just close the door.
Yeah, done.
And buried with all due. So.
It's all done?
Job done. Dude is buried. Yeah.
Do you guys want to do segments?
Let's take a break,
Yeah, we'll take a
and
break.
we'll come back with the next subject matter.
Yeah. And we are going.
We're back.
Yeah. What was it? How long was that segment?
Pretty long.
Yeah.
It's probably an hour.
All right. So we got Vase news, but real quick, I also want to mention that I did climb the well shaft again. I wanted to get up there
Crazy.
look, for the dang giant granite block that's supposed to be in there, but it definitely seems that the chamber has been collapsing. And when you're in there, you can tell.
The grotto.
I'm sorry, the grotto. Yeah, the grotto has been slowly collapsing. So it's in effect, it's this sort of bubble in like an aggregate material, and the ceiling keeps falling in. So the floor rises and the ceiling rises. So the whole bubble is just slowly moving upwards through this kind of like an aggregate material. It's like a sandy, powdery, red stuff mixed in with a whole bunch of cobbles and gravel. It looks artificial. The material itself looks artificial, like you could even imagine it being some kind of a very ancient concrete that is now just turning into dust. You know, whatever had glued it together is basically decomposing.
Yeah.
So now it's very powdery, but in some places, like in the grotto on the walls, it's actually quite solid. But the stuff on the floor is just powdery, like you can just run your hands into it, and it's but while I was in there, because the well shaft starts from the bottom of the descending passage and goes all the way up through the bedrock to the grotto part. And the grotto is, according to the maps that you can find, the grotto is basically an opening right at the bedrock top. Just below the bottom course of masonry, the grotto is this opening in the bedrock. So it seems like it may have been a natural feature that they tried to fill in with material. But there are these two fissures that pass down through the bedrock, and they actually go through the descending passage.
Yeah.
So as you're going down through the descending passage, you pass this big wide crack in the bedrock, and then as you keep going down, you pass another crack. And then when you get to the entrance to the well shaft and you start climbing up it, you pass through one crack that's almost vertical, and then another one. And the bats were in the first one rolling up.
Yeah.
Like I actually looked in, you could see cave formations. It's maybe only this wide, at least where the well shaft passes through it. But there are like large stalactites because it's almost vertical. So these things are like going way down and then connecting to the other side because it's like slightly tilted. And you can see bats hanging out in there, way back there. Anyway, as when sitting in the grotto, as people are going up and down the grand gallery, walking on this wooden pathway, and there's boom, 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 boom down the wood, the whole grotto is going boom.
Oh my God.
And it's really scary because it's deadly silent in there. But as soon as somebody starts walking down the whole, it's like sitting inside of a gigantic bass speaker. It's like, woo, woo, woo. This is probably why it's collapsing. That's what I think.
Yeah, just the vibrations.
Yeah.
The traffic.
Traffic. Yeah.
Yeah, slowly.
Anyway, I got some good video, and Kyle and I will probably be publishing something on it later after we get back. But yeah, it's quite an adventure, and it's incredibly dusty.
Dude, I went down there, like, you told me you were going up there, and I had some other stuff to do, and eventually I was like, okay, I got to go down, and I was thinking, like, he'll probably be up there, and then I can just go up. I get down there, and the way to get in, like, it used to be a lot more open, and now it was like this little crack.
Yeah.
And I had my bag on, and I'm climbing through there, and I'm like, got stuck, dude, with the bag, so I had to move the bag out of the way. And I finally get in there, and I look up, and it was just cloud of dust.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I wussed out once again.
I'm just not fitting in that game.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that was
Nor would I.
that was actually
It was terrifying.
the scariest part was squeezing. And I sat down there, and people are going up and down, and like, you know, somebody would go by, and then I'm like, and I pull, because it was like this much room, and I'm like, I can't fit through there, so I kept dragging quietly, trying to drag all this material down, and then somebody go by, and I'm like, hey bro, I'm just chilling, and drag all this material, and I finally got it to this much, and then trying to worm through that, and just like, oh god.
Yep. I got through it. I looked up and saw the cloud of dust, and I was just like,
Nope.
I'm going to be breathing that dust.
Yeah.
No way. And I shimmied back out, and then right after I got out, I hear and all these rocks start raining down in there, and I was like, oh, thank God.
Well, if you'd have started climbing, as soon as I got out, I would have heard you, or you could have said something.
Man, it's crazy how quiet it gets, because it's so, when you're up there, you were still climbing. I didn't know, because I'm like looking up. Maybe you were taking a rest.
Probably went around the bend.
I don't know what it was, but I couldn't hear anything. And I was like, nope, too much dust. And I back out, and then I just hear raining materials.
That's probably right
For the next few minutes. No, because you were, then I just sat there and waited, and it got super silent. Nothing rained down for a long time. And people were passing me, they didn't even know I was there. Like, I just huddled in that little cavity, and people are like going down, and I'm just like chilling. And they're like, some people pass without even know. Some people are like, hey, and I'm just like, all right, go ahead. And no one asked, like,
What are you doing?
what is that?
Yeah.
Because it's so.
It's almost hidden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just looks like a bunch of trash. When
Yeah.
you look in-
Yeah.
Unless you get like down and look at it.
But I wait, and this is the second time I've done this. When you finally start coming down, I know, because I hear like this stuff just starting to tinkle down, and then eventually it gets more and more. And you can't see any light. I look in there, and it's just pitch black, and it keeps raining down stuff, and then it pauses for a minute, and then it rains down stuff, and it pauses. Can't hear anything. And finally, like right around the time when I can start seeing a little bit of a flash or a glow, I'll start to hear,
Yeah.
Like I start to hear your voice, but other than that, you can't hear it at all. Like it's not. It's so damp. Like it's not traveling.
Yeah, that's true. And the whole time you're in there, it's very quiet. And then, I don't know, the grotto itself is just... No, it's like... It's like forbidding.
Yeah, you said that.
Yeah, there are these
Wispy
filaments of salt crystal, whatever they are, halite hanging, and then it just your breath, and they're like... You know, it reminds me of the... Indiana Jones, you know, the when he's in
Doom.
no. It's the breath of God.
Yeah.
You know, the penitent man. It's got the penitent man kneels before.
Yeah, it's got the cobwebs in it.
Cobwebs are like blowing at you. You better kneel. You get in the grotto and you're like, and then all these things are like, and it's just, I don't know, just sitting in there. The longer I was in there, and maybe it's just because it's freaky, because as I'm studying it, I'm like, the roof is falling in, and I'm hearing this boot, and the whole chamber's oh my God, right? But I was just like looking at, where's the spark? Yeah, I have to get out of here. Yeah.
If there was a spark in there, you might
So-
just like,
Yeah, just like,
finally, my dream is to...
So the roof is falling down and the floor is rising up,
Yeah.
and so
It's buried that block.
it's buried the block.
Yeah. From everything we can tell, it's used to be a meter down now. Like it
Yeah.
could be a meter.
it's got to be a meter down. If you
So
look
what
at
about the
outline-
entrance? What about the entrance to the grotto? Is it also filling
It's
up? Or
filling in.
And
If you
so
look-
it's a slope
and
because the
eventually-
stuff's falling down.
Yeah, if you look at the old pictures, the entrance to the grotto was, 3 or 4 feet. There's a big hole. You can see,
So that's
and then
what-
people were actually having to climb to go around because you could
get into the cavity.
Because the well shaft at that point is masonry. It's a square of masonry going up through the grotto.
Yeah, up
right.
to the
Square. A square. Just a square.
And a spot.
A square of masonry. So when you get into the grotto, you're actually looking at the outside of the square, and the grotto itself goes around to here and ends, and around to here and ends, and then there's a big bubble going this way,
Yeah.
right? And initially, when I got in there, I'm digging over in the bubble looking for, and that's when I was like, oh my God, it's so soft. And I look at the roof, and I'm like, I'm like, oh my God, it's like, ah. This time I stayed out of that spot. I didn't really, I crawled up a little bit, but I knew that the block is supposed to be right there by the entrance. But as soon as I got in and I got up there and looked at the entrance, and the opening starts down here with the masonry, but there's material all the way up to here, and then the opening is this big.
Oh, okay. So it's really
It's filling it up.
like 3-4 feet.
So yeah,
So the rest of that material is falling down the shaft,
falling
and
down the
that's
shaft.
probably what's closing up the
Yeah.
bottom of the shaft. Okay, so when we went through the history of discovery, and it was like Davidson and Davidson or whatever, whoever these guys were that were like digging it out, and he was like throwing. We were asking ourselves like, how did the shaft get full at the bottom?
yeah.
Right, because apparently Mamoon would have been digging a tunnel and throwing all the refuse down there, which would have just
Filled up the descending
descending passage and blocked the tunnel, but not filled it up with material. So the material might have been from the grotto.
coming down.
All of that, like even in their time, the grotto is moving up, and the material is falling down and filling up the shaft.
Yeah, one of the suggestions was that, and maybe this was in Chris Dunn's book, The Power Plant, was that they had to remove the tiles in the Grand Gallery, and every time they pulled one out, they all slid down, and they were shoving the
Yes.
broken tile pieces into the top of the well shaft, and it was just dropping down, right? Which is possible, but it really appears to me now, like I can imagine, because of the nature of the shaft itself, especially at the bottom, like it's interesting because up at the top where it connects to the Grand Gallery, it's masonry. It's beautifully cut. It's very square. It goes in, and then it starts to go down, and that's all masonry. But the actual part going through the bedrock is just rough cut. I mean, it's a rough sort of square, and in some places it's barely wide enough for your shoulders. You have to kind of get in there diagonally and climb, So but it does seem like they started from the bottom of the descending passage. Because I think what happened is the descending passage goes through those two cracks, and they started to be concerned about the effect of those cracks on the passage and the structure above. And so they went and were like, let's dig up and check. Right? But what I don't understand is what the purpose of the masonry part of the well shaft was initially then. It just went down into that bubble and stopped.
Yeah.
I think. But then somebody decided to cut their way up through to look at those fissures. And the second fissure up, so when you're climbing up from the bottom, you pass one fissure. That one is the one where you can see the cave formations and the bats and stuff. And you get to the second one, it's packed full of the same material that's in the grotto.
Pebbles. Yeah.
So they filled it.
Yeah.
They were trying to
I think that
shore it up.
I think that grotto is also a fill material.
Yeah.
Like that's like that it
This
was
would be ground prep. Yeah.
it was already a void and they filled it with the pebbles and whatever, these.
What I don't understand is why wouldn't the builders have filled it in with stone from the start if they were... It seems like an afterthought. Like, you can no longer get big blocks in there. Like, dude, they have huge tiles outside filling in holes in the bedrock. It seems like you'd be like, okay, there's this big hole right here. Let's tile it in,
big block in it,
fill it up. It looks like this is something that had to happen later.
Or maybe they wanted a continuous passage out that way. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they needed... Maybe they needed a masonry passage going into some sort of void for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then later they started to worry that it was...
If you go with the conventional idea that the plug blocks in the ascending passageway were like an actual door,
Yeah,
a door only to be shut,
right.
then the only escape, once those doors were shut, would be through this passage.
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty legit, okay, you're gonna close off these doors. The plug blocks are sitting in the grand gallery, and then the guys that had to finish the job had to basically release the catches on those
And
things
they had to
and
get out. Yeah.
let them slide in, and then they have to get out.
That's what I was saying.
So they go through the passage, then they go through the rough cut tunnel, and then at the bottom they seal up the wall. But this whole idea of sealing up the wall is kind of ridiculous because it's bedrock.
Yeah.
Any looter would notice, like, oh, it's
Couple
all
of blocks.
bedrock. Oh, hey, here's a block.
Yeah.
Just yank it out, yeah.
So it seems like it would be even ludicrous to even try to seal it because you can't make it look.
Yeah, the only way
bedrock.
would be to plaster the entire thing all the way down.
They'll case it over again.
Yeah, so you put in some blocks and then you plaster all of it.
Yeah.
So the blocks are covered in plaster. And then the plaster is falling away. I don't know.
That's a good point, but it's just.
It's a mystery.
Yeah.
It sure is. Well, it's still not solved.
No, and I just been, I always been fascinated with the idea that there's another entrance into that thing, maybe through that hole in the shaft at the bottom of the subterranean chamber.
Yep.
I'm not sure. I've not found. Maybe someone out there knows, like if they've ever dug that out.
Dug that all the way out, and yeah,
it's like
it's full of
granite
stuff.
block and there's stuff and sediment.
And that's the
Long
thing.
been rumored that there was another way in.
Or how did a giant granite block get into the grotto in the first place?
Well, so I know how that one did in the grotto. So it was most likely part of whatever mechanism was up at the
In the
portcullis, up in the antechamber.
It just seems like the hardest possible place to put it.
Well, they shoved it in, so it was documented as being stuck in that masonry passage in the well shaft for like decades. It was a 600-pound block, so they kicked it. Might have been in the way. They shoved it in that hole, and it was jammed in the upper part of that passage for a long time.
One of the reasons why I wanted to get to it because I wanted measurements. Like, will it even fit through the entrance?
Yeah, it's a good question, but it's
600-pound.
that it is documented as being stuck in there. People talk about it, and then the guy, I think there's a story of the dude who eventually got it loose, and then it fell down and it ended up in the grotto.
Yeah, but that's the other problem.
How does it get into
Nothing falls and ends up in the grotto. You'd have to go sideways.
Yeah. Well, maybe it was
This is what-
maybe
Yeah, because it's just a
wedge
vertical
was just-
shaft.
Yeah.
Maybe it was instead of kicking it loose, it was like this wedge they had to just like somehow
Unless the
kept catching
I
and
think-
they shove it in there.
Yeah, I
Unless
think
the well shaft was completely full of debris.
Yeah.
And a block fell, and then they pushed it into the grotto as they were digging down.
and they dug it out.
that
That thing has two.
That makes more sense because it's like the well shaft gets small at some places, right? So if you got a big block, you probably could get it through that opening into the grotto, but it isn't going to go all the way down through the passage. If you shove it down farther, it's just going to get wedged in, and then you're going to be screwed.
Yeah, it's a broken piece, apparently. It has 2 drills on it. It's probably, some mechanism.
The antechamber.
And it could be dug out, but it's dangerous in there, dude.
Yeah, I think
We don't want to be messing with it.
I think at this point we just go with the documented history of it. I mean, it's that block's the interesting part, I think, in the grotto, at least for me.
Well, there is something else I found in there that is weird.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we save it for your
Yeah.
video. There was some discovery that, was made in there that's like,
Yeah, what is this?
this is a...
Yeah. May have been revealed by the collapsing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Well, you don't know? Tune in.
Tune in next time. We'll find out. Okay.
All right. Yes, so...
Vases.
Yeah, let me...
Cliffhanger.
Yeah. So there's been some other things that actually happened while we were here, as a matter of fact, and something else that happened 10 years ago at this point that I thought was really interesting. I was made aware of is that I just thought this was an extremely cool find. In that I talk endlessly about the hard stone vases from ancient Egypt that are found typically in Egypt, and although there are other precision artifacts in places like Turkey and some that sort of show up in Greece and here and there, but I did not know this, but they have also been found in Syria, which admittedly is not that far away from Egypt, given it borders it. But these things, there have been hard stone vases found in like a 3,500, 3,600-year-old tomb
Yeah.
in Syria.
Yeah, so published February 2010.
Only 50 years later.
Yeah. Breaking news, folks. This year, an unplundered tomb cellar was found under the northwest wing of the royal palace in Katna in Syria. With hundreds of artifacts as well as human bones from 1600 to 1400 BC. 30 skulls, suggesting at least that many individuals were placed there, likely members of the royal family or household. The bones were not in anatomical position, but stacked in groups, indicating that these were secondary burials, perhaps even of earlier royals buried elsewhere and later moved to the tomb cellar. There were numerous pottery and stone vessels. The stone ones are very interesting. Some are of granite and come from Egypt, but they are from the Old Kingdom 1,000 years before these burials. So what's the explanation for that? One of the alabaster vessels, possibly from Egypt, held a cache of gold jewelry, and in other parts of the tomb were gold foils, textile or furniture decorations, possibly a bronze spearhead, a dress pin, gold dress pin, and a lapis cylinder seal, and a seal in the shape of a scarab, which is also very Egyptian, and an ivory human statuette. And what artifact could be more inspiring than the sculpture of a monkey holding a cosmetic jar? So, yeah.
That's smart.
It's very inspiring.
Very inspiring.
Yeah.
What could be more? The vases.
Yeah. So maybe you'll put up some pictures, but you can see in the photos that the vases are it's classic
100%.
Egyptian, what we associate with Old Kingdom Egyptian stone vessels. Pre-dynastic.
That's the thing. That's
right.
They classify them based on form, and this is your standard approach to anything that pops up looking like that. Well, it's Old King. No one knows. Pre-dynastic Old King. It matches form of both. To be honest, there's alabaster, there's vases, there's dishes. I will put the pictures in here. They do look to have some of the characteristics of the precise ones. Certainly, they're made from the diorites and the stones with the really big inclusions in them. And look, I just think it's good evidence that these things were valuable. They were being traded. They were objects that made their way around. I mean, that's who knows what the range of where they originally found was and who got their hands on them. But it's
And who says these people even got them from Egypt?
Yeah,
they may have found their own cache of them.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just,
Don't say that to you, Sir Philip.
What? Yeah.
Very in Egypt. But yeah, it's just it's fascinating. I think it's a good example. I mean, clearly inherited is the other option. Clearly. I mean, they even call them Old Kingdom. They're 1,000 years inherited at this point. And this sort of admitted in the article. Oh yeah, these are from buried with someone. So they're not saying that these people made them.
Right.
which is the default position for every other vase that's pretty much found in
Yeah.
burials, unless when you have the scratched hieroglyphs that indicate it's somewhere else, and then then maybe they're inherited. Maybe is this a possibility? I just think it's like, it's a possibility. It's like the joke I keep making is like if Matt Bell dies,
Oh yeah.
touch wood, he lives forever. If anyone might, he might. But yeah, I mean, if he goes and he's, I'm going to be buried with my
Yeah, I know.
my bunch of vases, and our civilization ends in 3,000 years in the future.
We told him he needs to build a giant triangle.
He does.
Get himself a huge stone box and bury himself with all of his vases.
Because the archaeologists in the future will think he made some really nice vases. That's right. Maybe they'll figure out they've got all of these different properties. I'm like, this was a smart dude.
He should
One of the things,
he should even bury himself with a bunch of the 3D printed ones. And he can make some confusing drawings of somebody doing the 3D printing. They'll be like, well, okay, so they seem to have made these vases in this weird.
Well, yes, he was imitating them because these other ones are really expensive. Maybe he didn't have all the money.
So one of the pieces of evidence that I think is important when it comes to these vases being more ancient than the standard model, or at least in terms of the step pyramid, Djoser, is that ball.
Yeah.
Granite.
Blank.
Yeah, so I mean,
We'll show you this too.
like, I could be wrong about this, but it doesn't have any. I mean, have you thought of any other purpose for this
No,
thing,
I have
or
no idea what
does
that
anything look? Does it look like?
Basketball of granite.
Yeah, it's this big. It's very heavy, like it's just like how you have to get it down 5 levels down into this underground labyrinth of tunnels. It's hard enough to get down there. Yeah, it's a trap. And then they had it surrounded in a net, and it just
It just comes uppercut. He comes bouncing down.
So the point is,
Oh yeah, it's gonna break legs. Yeah.
the point is, I compare this to lithics. When you're looking for arrowheads or any stone tool lithic types, you're looking for work, blanks, and the raw materials.
Yeah.
So you'll find like, say, at a quarry site where they were gathering the raw materials, you'll see a lot of raw flint chunks that have a few chips taken off of the cortex, right? So they're looking to see the quality of the flint, and there's like crappy inclusions and all this stuff. The piece is still there, and there'll be a whole lot of them where they're just breaking a few chips off to see. And then you'll have a blank, and a blank is something that you can also find at quarry sites, but most likely you find them near campsites where they had actually taken a piece from the quarry, they had chipped off all the outer cortex, and they had basically a rough shape of something that could be made into a knife, it could be made into a projectile point, it could be made into whatever. It could be thinned down. They're usually kind of thick and bulky, but they've gotten rid of all the excess material that they don't need, and it's a percussive flaking. It's something you can do quick in the field, and then you would bring it to the campsite, and at the campsite, they would like hone it down to like these fine pieces. A collector will collect the fine pieces and also the tools and the pieces all through their evolution. So you'll have like a cortex, like this big chunk of flint with like a few nice pieces taken off of it. And it's like, wow, yeah, you can see they worked that. And then you have the blank, and then you have the actual worked pieces. But if you're the manufacturer,
Right.
you don't take the blank down into your tomb or into your like sacred space. You take the ceremonial arrowhead with all the notches and all the crazy stuff and the most beautifully and you put that in the burial.
Yeah.
You don't bury them with the blanks or the freaking raw materials.
Yeah,
So that's the thing. Like, there's this ball of granite down there that's roughly the size of, like, it's within the size of these, like, fairly standard
Bowl vases. Yeah.
bowl type, pot
Yeah.
type vases.
Cauldron
vases.
Yeah.
And you can imagine, and it's got a flat side, a little bit like this sort of flattened end where it kind of sits just nicely. And I'm like, this is from the manufacturer's site.
Yeah.
What is it doing down here in where the burials were supposed to be with all of the finished pieces?
Yeah.
And it suggests to me that they were collectors.
It was a collection.
Right.
Because collectors collect every artifact.
Yes.
This was before they made it into a vase. It's special. Bring it, put it down into the sacred site.
Yeah, and in museums, to be fair, there are what seems to be vases in other stages.
Yes.
Not quite complete.
And some of which they call mace heads. I've looked at a lot of these mace heads, and I'm just like, dude, this almost looks like a preformed vase. It's already been worked at least a bit on the outside, and it's been cored out, but it hasn't.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were maces.
Yeah, sure. There's right, but there are, and in some other places, these examples of vases in different level parts of production. And that said, we know they were also making them by hand. Like there is a category of them that is the most precise first. So maybe they were fitting, but I don't know what that thing would be doing down there because they weren't at that point in the Third Dynasty. I'm really not. I mean, I know they were probably attempting to recreate stuff in hard stone as well as the alabaster, but yeah.
But that's
they were collecting 100%. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
It's actually acknowledged that's what they were doing.
That's what I'm saying. Like
they
had already revered these artifacts from their ancestors.
He went out and robbed everybody's tomb. Like,
Yeah.
Joseph's like, I get them all. Like he was like, I'm the king. Go get them all.
I know I know the feeling. I mean, I'm just like,
bring the dump truck.
Where are the middens?
Yeah.
Let's
Bring the machines.
Yeah. We had a competition. We're out in the desert, you say. One of the things we did in Dahab, and we found some midden, and it was $20 on best piece, and rough one and stuff. I was never.
God dang it!
If you did,
I found
very
midden.
nice piece. You found
Fair
midden.
enough.
Yeah, you're the midden hunter.
I never should have dropped the midden bet.
Damn it! The guy was like, "Who finds the midden?" It was guaranteed.
Well, hold on now.
Well, okay.
Kyle was looking at midden, and I was already looking at it too. And he was like, "This looks like midden." I'm like, "It looks just like midden."
He did. He immediately agreed. I was like, "This is midden." He was like, "Yep." Okay.
Yeah, because I was already looking around.
it. Like,
You called it.
The midden hunter.
You called it, but we're standing under that shit, and you could see that the different, it's just the nature of the ground and all the rocks that are sort of the same shape or whatever. And it was like, it
We
looked
got
like
confirmation within 30
we started
seconds.
looking down.
I look down.
Fight Flint.
I go down. Boom. Flint flake. I'm like,
flakes.
they're working flint.
Yeah.
Done. Burn rock.
Bones.
Freaking bones.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
There were modern fires right there. And Yusuf was like, no, this is where the guys, like the tour people that
have lunch.
they camp. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Because it's a great place to camp. It's a great place to camp. Right.
Been a great place to camp.
Yes, for a long
So we find I find the first piece. I find the first piece with this nice worked edge, and I give it to Yusuf, and he's like, "You're right." Oh my God! And it's on, bro. We were just everybody's digging through, and then Russ just comes walking up, all silent, just busts out this beautiful piece, and it's like,
Bifacial, like wood.
I just lost 20 bucks.
Like you win.
These Kyle are like, oh.
And meanwhile, I find a bit. I think this looks working. Like, yeah, it's probably working. This is not.
Well, we actually.
it was great fun.
Yeah. And we should talk about Dahab, but we're
I
still
want to say this one other thing.
Okay.
There is a rock crystal quartz arrowhead out there in that site. And Russ found this piece. I mean, it's just transparent quartz. Boom. And he's like, look at this. And immediately I see the one side, the whole side is worked and it's rounded. And then later, when he looked at it in detail, there's actually an edge that's
it's a blade edge. It's like a blade edge, just beautifully
couldn't
worked.
see it out there. And of course, we were getting whipped in the face with the sand, like.
Yeah.
And it was like immediately the dark gods were like, "Get out of here."
Yeah, leave.
We were like, "No, this is midden." And
Yeah, his name's whipped by sand.
Yeah.
in the face.
You try to bend down and start looking, you're like,
You can't look at it with. You can't find arrowheads with sunglasses.
shades on. Yeah, you have to take your shades off.
Looking at the ground.
I had that feeling though. It was just perfect. It was like the the geological feature that draws you to the area is this massive archway in the sandstone up high, and it's this curved tunnel.
Yeah, yes, through.
It goes all the way through the rock blade, or whatever it is, the mountain.
And the way
On the side that we approach, the wind is whipping up, and it's driven this dune way up on the cliff face. So you have to hike up this dune, and I mean, me and Ben were hiking up together. I didn't see you hike, but we were just like,
yeah, I was behind you guys.
And you have to, you kind of like sink it. No, you definitely get sand in your shoes. Yeah, that way you like sink into the sand. Just
so we get up there.
Backwards.
There's like a rope ladder because it's like super slick, and we crawl all the way up in there, and there's ancient rolled like sediment jammed into this thing, and it was just such a strange geological feature. When you get inside it, the wind is just howling through this thing. It's this. It was amazing. It just, geologically speaking, and it felt magical right off the bat. I was just like, dude, this is...
When you stand far away from it, it looks like a giant dragon head.
It looks like a dragon head.
I mean, it looks just like, it's a sleeping dragon, just head laying on the ground, and the archway is the eye.
that's what it looks like. He's not saying that's what.
I'm not saying it's a dragon. I'm saying that you could see this feature miles around, and you're like, wow, look at this. And it stands out. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're up in the tunnel at first, and it's just like, this is just, it just has that feeling of just awe of nature, the power of nature, and this, it's just like, how ancient is this? And just, it's just
sketch out this spectacular. I mean,
it's incredible.
White sands. And
yes.
So Eastern deserts. Amazing.
Yeah, so we climb down, and we go around the end of the rock blade to the other side, and that's where there's this sort of overhang, classic shelter, and the whole underside of that, just this massive midden area. And it was just perfect. It's like, of course, not only is it a shelter from this brutal wind, but there's also this just amazing geological feature that you could see from miles away that is just distinctive, and it's also got this sort of magical component to it. You know, the wind howling through this hole in the rock. I can't tell you, folks, how much I want to go back to that desert rock. I just want to be back there. It's so enchanting. Yeah. Anyways.
We'll have to drag you to Alexandria anyway.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. But yeah, so there was another story that popped up while we're here. And in fact, this was more excellent work from our good friend Max Zamel, Dr. Max Zamel, the physicist. And some of you may have seen the live stream I did on my channel, and we talked a bit about it. I know you guys talked about it, and I think we did a podcast about it too. The scanning electron microscopy work on Vase fragments. But, since then, Max Zamelov, he's a physicist, nuclear scientist, taught at Penn State for like 8 years or something like that, started his own company. He's doing fusion experiments in his room. He's got like a 9-foot tall Tesla generator. Apparently also has according to this, a 1.5 or 2 ton like lead shield for some radio.
I wouldn't be surprised.
He does. He has one. Radioisotope experiments that he was doing on these bases. But he's since connected with Matt Bell. And he recently, I haven't watched it yet because we've been here in Egypt. I want to watch it. But
he went on Matt Bell,
on Matt Bell's. And I'm very grateful to him for getting involved. It's another great example, like Mark missed, of someone who has a very particular skill set, like a really advanced skill set, that he has fallen down the rabbit hole of what the hell are these things, and looking at the results we're getting with the base scan project and the analysis, and he's like, well, I'm going to start figuring this out and using my skill set to do that. So, we kind of started that he contacted me and we did the scanning electron work. There's still, I talked a little bit about it in the last video. I still need to do a produced video on it. and talk about the results, although I have a detailed live stream getting into it. But he recently produced a metrological study of, I think, 22 of Matt Bell's Vase, because at this point, we've got a pretty good database of scanned artifacts. Like, it's not just one or two anymore. Like, there are dozens now that have been scanned. So Matt Bell's got at least 22. He's been getting them scanned with CT X-ray at EMS, and they're producing these fantastic sort of metrological reports, and then he's created a method. I talked about it in my last Vase video, where he was basically, this was exactly what I was hoping would happen with the Vase Scan project, was that once you get a significant enough data set, you can start to compare them. You can look at, like, all right,
Can you do like statistical analysis?
yes, can we classify them? Can we categorize them? And he did exactly that. It's like, okay, so amongst the hardstone ancient vases that Matt Bell has, they fall into two distinct categories. One is very precise, one is less precise.
Yeah.
And there's a gap between them. And then he also threw in like modern marble vases and a breccia vase, and he threw in the handmade vases that have been used to say, oh, you can make these things with sticks and stones, right, rubbing on with sand, and showed just how ridiculous. Exactly, those explosive mean. My God. He showed just how ridiculous that is with this study. But I thought that was great work. But then he's applied some of his other skills.
Yeah.
And he's figured out this is something, I think, fascinating about these things that is like, holy shit, like the implications of this are huge.
So you guys can find this if you want to read it yourself at maximus.energy. Look for excess of thorium-232 in ancient Egyptian stone vessels by Max. So he says he's subjected 3 of Matt Bell's vases to a radiological study. And he says, specifically, I used a whole bunch of complicated stuff, an alleged shield to capture high-resolution gamma spectra of these artifacts. It took me 24 to 48 hours to capture each spectrum. I also captured spectra of red granite and basalt rock samples to obtain a baseline for comparison, because some of the vases are made of red granite and the other 2 vases are made of basalt. So the results, he say, the gamma spectrum of the precise basalt vase, the precise one, compared to the gamma spectrum of the basalt rock, is shown in his figures here. Basically, he says there is a 2.5 times excess of the thorium, right? That's what this is. Yes, thorium-212. And a 2 times excess in thorium-214. These peaks are evident, which indicates the increased activity. Oh, wait, no. So thorium-232 and U-238 decay chains. So basically, let me just go scroll down. He's got a bunch of graphs here. Preliminary findings. Okay. So he says, because I studied only a very limited sample of vessels, the findings so far must be classified as preliminary. Nevertheless, intriguing patterns emerge. The precise vases are characterized by 2.5x stronger thorium-232 activity compared to the imprecise vases. The precise vases are characterized by 2.5x stronger thorium-232 activity compared to the basalt and red granite samples. The gamma spectrum of the imprecise vase is consistent with the basalt. In other words, the baseline basalt.
Yeah.
So the preliminary findings, he says, are consistent with my nuclear machining hypothesis, which we will get into in a minute. That is, if the precise artifacts were fashioned using radioisotope machining, I expect them to show elevated activity compared to rocks they were made from. This seems to be the case as I observe 2.5x higher activity in the thorium-232 decay chain in the vessels compared to the rocks. 2, at this point, I cannot distinguish between the nuclear machining hypothesis and other sources of radioactive contamination, such as exposure to enriched nuclear materials, e.g., the precise vases could have been used as radioactive material storage containers or were parts of some nuclear machinery or reactors. 3, I need to study a larger sample of vessels to firmly establish the elevated activity of precise versus imprecise.
Yep.
Regardless of the nature of the observed radionuclides, these findings would speak volumes about how the 2 classes of vases or objects are quite different. And 4, I cannot think of a trivial way to explain why the higher quality artifacts are also more radioactive compared to the handmade vessels and natural stone they were made from. If you could think of an explanation, do let me know. Okay, so that is amazing, first of all.
Yes.
The implications, I mean, like it, at the very least, you have to say that for whatever reason, they have been exposed to a very specific kind of radioactive material.
Yeah.
I have a prosaic explanation, possibly.
Okay.
But I don't know. I haven't really looked at his data set. I'm just listening. So, like, how many, samples, how many imprecise versus precise?
I need a couple.
Blah, blah, blah.
That's
Okay.
what-
He
that's
did
what-
three
that's what-
vases. So-
3 vases. So that's why he said
So let
it's
me
preliminary.
let me make this. First, I'm going to tell you what Grok says.
Okay.
Okay.
Just about thorium 232. So, in natural basalt, thorium 232 concentrations usually range from 0.1 to 10 parts per million.
Yeah.
Okay, depending on where the basalt comes from and how it's formed. So, oceanic basalt tends to have a lower thorium, around 0.1 to 1 parts per million.
Sure.
Whereas continental basalt or basalt from volcanic arcs can have higher levels, up to 5 to 10 parts per million. Granite has more thorium, 10 to 20 parts per million or higher. So my thought is this. Could it be that the precise vases have an older and a higher quality basalt quarry that had a higher thorium content, and the imprecise vases are from like a different quarry in later times that has a lower basalt content by a couple of, a factor of 2 or 3 or whatever.
It could be. I mean, he is comparing. That's what this is. So what he's saying is, okay, it's weird that the precise ones have as compared to the imprecise ones made of the same material, and as compared to the samples of the base rock.
Yeah.
If that's what
But
he's
is
not
the-
high reading. But we don't know that the samples are at the actual quarry, right?
Yeah,
So
the base rock the same,
he was messaging me when he put this.
Yeah, he needs samples from the quarry.
One
Yeah.
of the things I said is that we do actually have, or you
Yeah,
have a
I
piece
think
of
so.
basalt from, because we went out and visited the basalt. What is the
Supposedly,
primary and really the only known source of basalt for ancient Egypt is up in the Fayum. It's a
Yeah.
range. We climbed up there and
yeah.
went out, and we
We have a piece of basalt from that.
yeah, we probably have a piece of basalt somewhere from that. Like, it's just. Well, we can get one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we don't have one, we will get
It's
one.
literally like it's just all over the ground. Like,
Yeah.
it's literally
Just need to
basalt
pick
rock.
up
It's
a
just-
nodule.
It's a rock of basalt.
Yeah. Yusuf probably has one.
And nonetheless, like you said, he can't think of a trivial reason. Maybe he's considered. I don't know. He said he can't think of a trivial reason why this would be the case, but he has to study other samples. I think it's fascinating. Like one of the other fragments that I have access to is, I think I've told you guys about it. It has like it's like the bottom part of a vase. The bottom, you've got a little curved, like the flat bit on the bottom, and then it curves up. But when Yusuf showed it to me, he's like, "Yeah, this is no good because it's all messed up on the inside." I'm like, "No, that's something's eating away at that
Yeah,
stuff."
no.
We need to look at
The
it.
inside, yeah, that
Yeah.
under a microscope, I think, or it would just see even elemental would, and it would be interesting because, like, his hypotheses of trying to explain this of like, okay, so nuclear machining is the radioisotope.
Yeah, so I got this
what do
pulled
we
up.
call it, the machining hypothesis.
Nuclear machining
We'll get
hypothesis.
to that, but the other one is like obviously fascinating to me because it's like this. They could that thing. This is one of the contentions I've always had about them. Is I feel like these are functional things that were then later inherited, used ceremonially, and probably used as vases. A lot of them don't function as vases. Endless examples of pointy tips. They need a frame. They're too small. They don't have lug. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Don't work well as vases. Lug handles don't work as handles really well in a lot of cases. But I think it's a possible explanation for them is that they were part of some functional apparatus.
Yeah,
Or
I really love the idea of the handles being some kind of locking mechanism.
Yeah,
you
like
plug it in, turn it.
Turn it.
Yeah.
The cam lock, East Africa. Yeah, that's always what I've looked at those and thought, yeah, like,
Yeah, that's good.
You put your nuclear stuff in there and you just
if you haven't watched the Marvels, every time they go get the power cell or the battery.
yeah.
Yep. There it is. It's just the thing. It's like this is the container for the green shit.
Even in Fifth Element, you need green stuff.
Glowing green shit.
Yeah, you need the glowing green shit to power up your spaceship.
They held the glowing green shit. But he has another hypothesis. I actually don't know much
This
about this.
is really cool.
Nuclear machining
So again,
hypothesis.
shout out to Max.
Yes.
who has been awesome about all of this. And I really encourage you guys, just go to the website and check this out, because I'm not going to read all of it. I'll just go to skip through and give you the abridged version. But again, at Maximus...
Max.
You haven't met Max yet.
Kyle hasn't met Max yet. At Maximus.energy. So, nuclear machining hypothesis. Marveling at the precision of ancient Egyptian stone artifacts, be that granite sarcophagi or stone vases, I realized that we are trying to explain how these objects could have been made using our contemporary technology. If we are to believe that these artifacts are a legacy of a much older and much more advanced civilization, then it is futile trying to explain these marvels with our limited knowledge. Surely this advanced civilization did not use cutters, saws, and end mills that we use today for the same reason that we do not use flint tools, copper chisels, or potter's wheels in modern-day manufacturing. So we need to look further. What powerful yet plausible technology could this hypothetical advanced civilization have used? So allow me to formulate a hypothesis. It is common knowledge that nuclear energy packs millions of times more power per unit mass compared to chemical fuels. What if this hypothetical advanced civilization used nuclear machining rather than a mechanical one? Allow me to explain. So this is great because I immediately started thinking of the Shamir. Cutting with ion beams, a Jedi lightsaber. Ion beams are commonly used for micromachining, e.g. when high voltage accelerates ions, the high velocity ions impinge on the surface and dislodge atoms. One can do the same thing using unstable, short-lived radioisotopes that emit alpha particles. Take, let's see, what's PO? Polonium? PO. Somebody look up PO on the old,
Yeah, let me do that for
I
you.
think it's polonium.
You got mine.
Polonium-210, for example. These atoms decay by emitting alpha particles, which are helium ions traveling at very high velocity. A milligram of this
Yes.
polonium, right?
Yeah.
A milligram of polonium-210 would emit a horrendous flux of helium ions, which would ablate any surface they come in contact with.
Wow.
Suppose we have a way to coat a blade with a rich surface layer of polonium-210. Such a blade would ionize the air in its vicinity and will glow like a Jedi's lightsaber as alpha particles scatter on air molecules, lose energy, and emit light in the process. However, should such an alpha emitter coated blade come into contact with a solid surface, the alpha particles would ablate it away at a rapid rate, and the blade would cut through stone without any effort.
Oh my gosh.
I love this guy. In the case of such a blade, it won't be the physical effort that does the cutting. It would be the ablating action of the alpha particles, which draw their power from the astonishing energy confined within the nucleus. Such a hypothetical tool would be very easy to control. One can simply move the blade away when cutting is no longer needed. The air gap between the blade and the stone would scatter and diffuse the alpha particles, thus stopping the ablation. And there will be no chips or grinds to worry about. The ablated material will be evaporated and turned to gas or extremely fine powder. So what stops us from developing such technology now? For one, our limited mastery of nuclear energy. And remember, this guy is like a nuclear physicist. He knows what he's talking about. We do not yet know how to synthesize, how to control, and how to handle large quantities of polonium-210 or any other short-lived alpha emitter. But if we can learn if we set our minds to it. He goes to another one with softening a matter with electrons. It's similar concept. But getting to the end here, he says, testing the hypothesis. If nuclear machining was used to shape and cut the ancient megaliths, what evidence of it can we find? I can think of the following. 1, because the isotopes necessary for nuclear machining described above by necessity are short-lived, we are not going to find any of them, but we may find their decay products. If the decay products are foreign to the virgin rock, then they will stand out during the elemental analysis of the surface composition. Finding heavy elements such as bismuth or lead will be exciting as many heavy radioisotopes decay into these. 2, excess amount of helium trapped in the rock would be a telltale sign of alpha machining. And 3, perhaps there could be trace amounts of radioactivity left in the rock due to other nuclear reactions that might take place due to heavy alpha or beta exposure. It is also possible that the decay chains of the hypothesized alpha and beta emitters would contain long-lived isotopes that may still be present on the machine surfaces. This is the thorium.
Yes.
Lastly, perhaps there might be anomalies in the crystalline structure, such as microcracks, defects, or dislocations due to alpha-beta action. In principle, it is possible to expose stones to small quantities of alpha or beta emitters and study the resulting changes in the crystalline structure using electron microscopy. this is something we can study in order to learn what to look for. As such, the proposed hypothesis is testable, and it is testable with conventional tools at our disposal, such as gamma spectrometers, electron microscopes, EDS, XRF, and WDS. Who knows? Perhaps the ancient stone artifacts might teach us a thing or two about nuclear energy.
Yeah.
It's so cool. He goes on
really cool.
or controlling the reaction. He's showing like diagrams of how the blades would work, charged particles coming off, natural nuclear reactors. Anyway, so this is amazing, Max. Like that is phenomenal.
Yeah.
The concept of the shamir that could just cut through stone like butter, and here you have it. You're like, well, you just coat it in some polonium. Zip.
Wafted around.
It doesn't need a power source.
Yeah.
You don't have to plug it into anything. It doesn't need to vibrate.
Yeah. Just
It turns the stuff into dust. You get a big, nice blade in your quarry, and you got your guy in his enclosed cavity. He's reaching out there, just bzz, bzz, making those huge scoops.
And then later,
like
they forgot how to use it. They contained it in a box.
yeah.
And they freaking carried the damn shit all
just
over
carry the
place.
tooltip.
Yes.
you open it up and all of a sudden
Everybody starts dying.
particles of radiation.
Yes.
It builds up static electricity. You touch the box, you get shocked and die. Dude, come on.
And
Mystery solved.
the radioactivity of the box that's currently probably in Ethiopia makes the dude
Yes.
blind.
Yeah, they go blind. They die young.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm more ready to believe this than the
Vases in the
fucking
Ark of the
chambers under the Khafre Pyramid. I'm more ready to go with this idea.
Yeah, this
It's just like
This is what I'm talking about. So good. And then he finds elevated levels of thorium
yeah.
in the precise vases.
So if there's anyone in the UK that has a 1.5 ton lead shield that Max can barrel,
Yeah, we knew that.
he is going to the Petrie Museum. He has an appointment. He's going over to do some work. I know, and he said he unfortunately can't bring.
Getting 1.5 tons up the stairs and through the little... It's going to be difficult.
Well, yeah, leaking through. But yeah, it's all.
If you bring it in pieces.
Come on, that has to be a
great.
Monty
It's just-
Python shit.
Look, lead blocks like this, you can build a...
Right, sorry. It's scary. What is that? Oh, it's just a lead shield. This is a lead shield. This is for an experiment.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I love this. That again, it's like Dunn did it with that Serapeum. I mean, and this is like, I love knowledgeable speculation like this. Admittedly, that's what it is, and it's. Yeah, it's you're proposing a hypothesis based on the limited data that we have. Obviously, the intent is to find more data, but man, like this is, it's the thing about the vase is that we keep digging deeper and learning more about it, and it's just like, all right, it keeps heading in this direction. Of
Yeah. Remember,
there's something else. This is not explain. Look, the goalposts have shifted, right? This is the best thing about this whole base camp discussion to me is that it used to be like, no, it's just, look, primitive people rub on this shit with rocks and stones and sand. That's all it is. It's just they tried really hard, and they did it.
Yeah.
But now
they
it's
were
like,
proud to work for the pharaoh for their entire life to make one.
Completely shifted. Like, well, you just, it's like you get a compass. You draw it like a perfect circle. Do this thing. And maybe they had wooden layers.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, anyone can do this with a lathe.
Anyone can, even a wooden lathe. You're like, this is such bullshit. But it's caused that. I mean, I just think it's undeniable. Like the goalposts have shifted that discussion, and every little extra layer of this is just going to keep moving it further and further, away. From the standard model.
Freaking cool.
So again, now you can apply this to the drill core. You don't need jeweled tips.
Yeah, you have something that may actually explain the.
My only question to Max, and we'll ask him this obviously, is like, what can you put polonium 210 on that won't get eaten by it, right?
Right.
So like, what's your blade? I'm sure he's figured this out.
Electrum.
Oh, maybe it's Electrum. There you go. That's why they're all rotten with Electrum. Yeah. But you need a blade material that can survive the radioactive shit you put on the bottom, because the alpha particles are going everywhere, and it's going to be subjected to it the most all the time.
Yeah, because it's surrounded.
To survive.
It's completely surrounded.
So maybe some certain metals are okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But, dude, you can make your blade any shape. It can be attached to any thing. It can be worked by hand. It can be an articulating arm. You can have you can have it on a chisel, and you're just like bzz, 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 whatever. You know,
Have it
can,
on a friggin' tube drill that
Yeah,
just drills
now-
down with the penetration.
admittedly, you don't want to be close to it either.
Probably not.
So maybe you don't put it on a chisel, or whoever's working with it is protected in some way. Yeah.
Well, as he says, we have yet to
if
learn how to
Electrum-
control and use.
Yeah.
If Electrum, or this mythical metal that they were working with, was like a shield, was
Yeah.
able to sustain, like to you could have this stuff on it and it worked,
Right.
then you could build a
Yeah.
you could build a protective layer.
Remember,
around
remember
yourself.
those scaled feet that we saw at Karnak? That dude standing up there.
Like scaled feet at Karnak. It's like literally there's a massive glyph, and it's just like this dude. We've never seen anything like it, where it's just like looks like scale mail armor.
Oh, yeah.
on their feet. Yeah, it's an Electrum armor set, bro.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, fully
I'll
armored.
show you guys the picture. It's really cool. Although I think Mama Jobber had an explanation for it, but
Sure. There's all a good
there
explanation.
was an explanation. Yeah. This is just this god in this form. Whatever.
Yeah, so honest.
I'm like, no, that's a dude in like scale mail armor. But
Scale mail
Electrum scale mail armor. Definitely, that's what it is.
Yeah. He's out
He
there
was wielding,
and they have this
and we
tool.
only have the feet. If we had the rest of it, you see, he's on a boat. He's just running past the cliff of granite, just going.
They have a tool that the guys are holding, and it's got this like T shape, like this bar at the top of it, and these dudes are holding this tool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the thing that they're going
Yeah.
down the face of the
No,
snow.
exactly. The squeegee.
Yeah.
It's the granite squeezy.
Granite squeegee. Well, we just need to flatten this section. Yeah. I'll get to it this afternoon.
But again, imagine the drill core, right?
Yeah.
So you have bits of metal, and it's just you have some polonium
Or teeth on it.
teeth
like-
on it. Yeah,
teeth
it's
on
just
it
like,
and it just
and you just
that actually
penetrate.
would explain the penetration.
and it just like it doesn't. It's turning the stuff into gas and dust.
So then it's
or like a giant
it's-
circular saw.
It's all
that's
about
just-
it's all about
it's
materials.
just-
Well, wait, no, there's no materials removal.
That's right. It's turning it into gas and dust.
It's carrying it out with it.
Why is it tapered? I'm thinking about
Well,
this one.
no, the
going,
tapering is. I actually think the tapering has an explanation. The tapering. Okay, so this is an esoteric discussion with drill cores. So just to set the scene for this discussion. So, okay, and this is a thing that people always talk about. Like when people say, "Oh, maybe that spiral helix is created when you
Pull it out, yeah.
No,
No,
because
no.
the holes are straight. Like, where's the camera? Here, the holes are straight.
No.
The drill cores, when you snap them out, are
tapered.
tapered.
Yeah. nicely done.
Yeah, so they're tapered. So the holes are straight, the cores are tapered.
Yes.
Why? So why? And it's like, well, so first of all, you can tell. Like, what I think is that they had drill bits for certain depths. We know there are drill holes that are this deep. We know there are ones that are this deep. So they would have had, I think, these tools designed for specific depths to tape it.
Because it's about the length of it.
Yeah, it's about, so you can't taper. You can't just endlessly. It's just you can't just keep tapering. It's going to taper out.
Yeah, so
But for widths and depths, they had different tools. But here's why I think they were tapered. Is because if you get down to the bottom of those drill cores and you can see the lip, it's like a millimeter or two thick. I mean, how?
Yeah,
the whole idea of the drill core is what? It's to remove as little material as possible to then remove the.
You think the
core.
tapering was built into the interior shape of the core?
taper is built into the
absolutely.
interior
It's built into the tool.
and you have, like you said,
This way, but the inside's like that.
inside, right? So for a certain depth.
yeah, you have.
Like, I
Let's
wanna
say you have
find
this
one-
depth. You go down,
And
you
it
take it
stops.
out, and you break the core off.
What's
then you
that?
put the tool back in, and you can go down another.
No. If you need one that's 12 inches deep or 14, like the ones in the Great Pyramid, are like this at the door,
Yeah.
like the deep. That's fine. The reason that I think they're tapered is that you need some space. Like it's still you still are removing that drill core with some manual. Like you're snapping it off. We know they snapped them off. Those
Oh, you need-
cores,
you need maneuver room at the
you
top.
need room to shove a friggin' chisel or some big bar in there, something to lever that thing and snap it off. We still do this today, even as advanced as we are. We with wood or whatever, you cut it out and then you got to chisel that thing in there, and and you have to snap it off. But if the whole thing was a millimeter thick the whole way down, you just are left with this millimeter.
Yeah, you don't have enough.
You know, enough
it would
room
flex, and you wouldn't have
to
enough.
flex
Yeah.
and to get it in there and pry
That's
it
a
and
good
snap
point,
it off.
yeah.
I think that's why they tape. It's literally just a mechanical. How do we snap it? By the way, how the fuck are you snapping off a 9-inch or even a 20-inch drill core? Like
Yeah.
the one at Karnak, it's like it's this deep and it's like this wide, like
Resonance.
I mean, that's like the tank stop.
Resonance.
Yeah.
You just
Snap that thing off.
You just need to know the frequency of vibration of that core, and you get it ringing and just.
Let me make that point. So that's why I tapered. Yes, the tools.
That's a great point on the
Chris
turret.
Dunn said this too. Like the tools were tapered on the inside, and here's why. And that also shows you that the people that say that these screws were moved when you unscrewed the bit doesn't work because the second you back it off, it's like a tapered inside of the tool onto a tapered core. The second you back it off, you're lifting up and you're
Not
immediately
touching the material.
not touching straight away. So it's just like
You're touching the outside of the core,
the
but
outside,
not the inside.
right,
Yeah,
you're touching the outside.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just think, look, hey, I think it
I think it's
explains the features that we see.
I think he's also right that you could continue to drill because you even after
Yes,
snapping
you
off,
absolutely could.
You
You
still
just shut it down,
put it back
go,
down in there,
snap
and you
off
start
another.
off at and you just
But that's not
drill.
the point. Your point is what I made that the striations can't be from removing it because the tape, as soon as you pull up, it's not touching anymore.
Right.
And the
It's not
taper is
unscrewed.
built in because you do need that leverage
At the top.
Like if you're because the leading cut. I mean, it's a perfect combination of these 2 points. You wouldn't have enough leeway in a core that deep. You just have no. You could push it and like make the top touch the other side, and it wouldn't snap at the
Well,
bottom.
you'd literally, if it was just a millimeter, if it was just that thin, that the tool tip width that we see at the bottom of the hole at the top, you'd literally have to either have a round set to hammer something.
Yeah.
You bust up the hole. You'd break the edges of that hole.
The other thing
You want the hole, not the core.
Exactly.
So you don't
The
want
core is not the purpose.
The other thing I really like about the
snap.
interior taper of the tool is that it seems like it would give the tool a lot of stability.
Yeah.
That it isn't gonna wanna
Wall.
like you're actually like it's always contacting, right? And that the whole time it's going down, all of it is drilling.
Yes.
Because as the interior, it's continuing to work on the stone,
Yeah,
so it's like incredibly stable.
The core itself actually keeps it stable.
The drunken spiral.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not one cutting tip. It's several.
Many cutting tips on the inside and the outside.
Here's the theory. Imagine this friggin'
polonium 210
thing. That explains you don't need Petrie's. Even Petrie said you need 2 to 3 tons.
Right. No.
Of pressure on like a 4-inch tube drill. Now he was like, he's just trying to understand how that penetrated so quick. But yes, that would explain it, and you can, and also the mechanism of just like you're evaporating the material.
Yeah. So it's just
you might just be blasting that damn thing with compressed air at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's just like
you don't need water cooling. You don't need a slurry. You just plunge it into the stone, spinning it slowly. You don't have to spin it fast. It's just like
I don't think
pull it out.
Yeah.
Kink. Pull it out. Kink. Yeah.
The other thing is this thorium 232 is naturally occurring in all of this bedrock and all of this. So it's like, I guess it's not far-fetched. I mean, I don't know how to isolate it. Like maybe the process of isolating this material would be very difficult.
it's very
But the fact that it's so abundant makes it plausible. This is not something that they had to manufacture or enrich. They could find it in the natural world.
I mean,
so.
and we're discovering the benefits of thorium now too. Like the thorium molten salt reactor is like one of those inventions that's potentially could change our entire relationship with nuclear power. It's very safe. Like they've made nuclear reactors out of it. Thorium molten salt is.
What was this deal with the salt? Yeah,
It's molten salt. So there's potentially this may have been these vases may have been part of a. This is complete speculation, just so we know. They may have been part of a ancient power source that we could have been using technology like a thorium molten salt reactor,
Yeah.
and that's a reason why we're seeing radioactive decay in these precise vases because they were machined from a culture and a civilization that had that capability and understood what they were for, and they're part of a functional apparatus. I mean, again, there's two classes. Like even with I make the big deal with the Tale of Two Industries about the alabaster ones versus the hardstone vases because it's so blindingly obvious and clear. It's the best way to make that point. But there are also the hardstone vases that are in that imprecise class that were handmade. There's examples of those too.
Okay.
I simplify it just for that Tale of Two Industries in most settings. That there's nuance. As with all of these things, there's endless nuance and detail.
I just have this one little thing I'd like to throw out there about the molten salt reactor.
Yeah.
So yeah, according to Grok, the leading thorium reactor concept is the liquid fluoride thorium reactor, a type of molten salt reactor.
Yeah.
It's dissolved in a molten salt. The thorium is dissolved in a molten salt at high temperatures, 600 to 700 C. It runs at atmospheric pressure. It's safer.
Yes. It's not a high pressure.
Salt doubles as a coolant and fuel. Okay, so the memory, again, going back to like the memory from the dynastic Egyptians of this technology is in their anointing of the temples. Like they're building these temples, but they're doing it with what? Sandstone.
Yeah.
They can fucking rub it flat. They can do all this stuff. And then they carve in the temples this thing like the temple is it's something that the gods made, and the gods are anointing the temple, and there's these carvings of them
Pouring,
with this. They're
pouring.
pouring
Salt.
what over the temple? Salt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
The anointing of the temple. It's like it's incredible. Just this idea that there's like a thorium reactor, and there's this salt thing, and then I don't know.
Yeah, and there's that.
It's so
whole-
cool.
I mean, that whole that's absolutely. I've got this video in the works. Is that it's surrounding like the topic is the Dendera light bulbs, but it's going to have a preamble talking about the interpretation that you heard me give the spiel on the site in the tour about the possibility that what we're seeing, these scenes and these anointings and all of these weird devices and things they're holding up, could well be these cultural echoes thousands of years ago of things that were once functional. The civilization ended. These are stories told around campfires and in oral tales for generations upon generations.
Yeah.
And then the religion starts, the civilization starts, there's structure and there is a framework built up around it and a priesthood, and they start to ritualize it and symbolize it. And then that evolves, and that evolves for thousands of years. And the symbology changes and evolves, and you put a little face on it, and you know the wasp staff becomes
like
a bird head or a
bird
dragon.
head.
It's just it becomes anthropomorphic, whatever. Like there's it's and you can look at it and go, this is weird. Like the thing he's holding in his hand, like the handbags is another example, right? So I think it's like it may have just gone through this filter of thousands of years of symbolic, ritualized cargo cult behavior of like, this is a memory of something that worked, and if we get it around the fire enough and worship it enough, maybe it'll come to life and give us these magical, mystical powers that it's just technology that we're mistaking as magic now. Like,
I love it.
I think that's a great way to, when you go into these temples and you look at what's on the walls, to consider that. Just like, what is this? Is this like this warped version through thousands of years of this culture and framework and structure?
Yeah.
And it's just evolved from this idea and this story that they had originally that might actually have a seed of reality to it.
Like
Fantastic.
the tablets in Ethiopia, right? It's like Graham goes through this whole thing. Like they have these gigantic processions where the priests carry these things through and they're not the ark. They're tablet. It's a tablet. Yeah. They're carrying tablets around.
Tapered.
A tablet. Yeah.
The tribes building wooden airplanes.
Yes, exactly. It's cargo culted.
Yeah. Right. And I'll put examples in here.
What I would love to see is an engineer develop a way, not using modern technology, but let's say go as primitive as you can and develop a way to utilize thorium-232. You know what I'm saying? Rather than, I mean,
But do it way out in the desert.
No, I'm not saying actually do it.
Can I set this on fire?
It's way out in the desert.
I'm not saying
by compressing instead of...
I'm not saying actually do it. I'm talking about theoretical development.
That's not nearly as fun.
A theoretical development, like the Giza power plant, right? Like it's this idea,
a conceptual,
this conceptual idea of how to use this pyramid to create power.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but with this thorium-232. Like, how could you stumble upon this or like utilize it in the most basic way possible, because we
Build up from there.
wouldn't think about it normally in normal engineering terms. They're like, well, we have all this modern technology, we can use all the tools at our disposal.
Yeah.
I would like to see like least possible tools.
Yeah.
That would be interesting because
Yeah,
you're talking about
the least advanced butt flap principle.
least advanced butt flap principle.
You want to
Yes.
baseline the technology.
Yeah.
Understand what you're saying.
That's I think that would be cool because you might be surprised.
Yeah, who knows?
You might be surprised at how like, oh, you could actually do this with like not a whole lot of our modern tech.
Yeah.
It would be interesting. I don't know. Anyways,
All right.
Yeah.
That's
We
at
can
least
wrap it
2
up.
hours.
We can wrap it up.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. It's great.
It's getting late. We have.
we're going to
We have
Andrew tomorrow.
we got fake watches.
Dude, you might have noticed the bling. Don't worry, it's not real bling. It's our entertainment. While we were the haggling and it was actually mostly the entertainment was in the process of buying it. At least we
Fake watch story.
They look.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Come on.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyways,
I don't even.
What is the time?
I don't even have bling.
Yeah. You have the. His dive watch is way more.
It's a dive watch, but
Yeah,
they
it's
have
way more.
yeah, they got freaking drip over there.
we're building a uniform.
Yeah. You're missing out.
Okay, I'll get one. Got to fit the drip.
But yes.
All right. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
This was fun.
We wanted to record something. It's been a great tour, and then just
Good.
we also wanted to comment on the Khafre thing, and
Yeah.
I know a lot of people ask me, so
There you go.
this is
A proper Uncharted X Snake Bros Road Toad.
Turns out
See,
we did not need this scene,
We didn't need it at all,
but I accidentally used it multiple times.
we used it in the first take. We completely went down. We just did 20.
No, this
minutes
is
of
good
all-
because it'll be good audio. You know, people can listen.
Indeed, yes, this was all audio. So yes, this can be an MP3 file. Hey man, I'm not even put out.
There you go, Bubba. Yes, podcast episode. New Uncharted X podcast.
That'd be like 8 months since the last.
Yeah, I was also on the last one. I was already there.
Sorry.
All right, thank you guys so much. We love you.
Cheers. Always have.
Always will. Good night, Adamu.
Get back to work.